Yeah, we're off. Hi, guys. What's going on?
Why is Taylor Swift so special? How does she tie in to some of the oldest mystery religions to this day? And how do we use discernment and step away from the Hollywood music industry? All this and more on tonight's Midnight Ride.
And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast. Rise up, rise up, rise up.
Hey, Diane, good to see you.
Who was able to make war with him.
Hey, Bill, good to see you, bro.
Welcome, everyone. We are live on the Midnight Ride tonight. And David
Glad I caught you live last night, mate.
is on vacation, so he has given me a stand-in. And I don't think they look anything alike, but from what I can tell, they both have a lot to say. So we're going to check this out. Jillian is also the co-host of the Doctrine of Christ, the DOC. If you haven't subscribed to that channel, make sure you do that. She also has tons of followers on Instagram. She puts out these awesome short videos that just really cause people to think. And so I'm excited to have her on about this topic because, as you know, superstars are what people love to worship, guys. And we'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. Many mainstream companies put dangerous chemicals in their products that contribute to disease and disability. This is why it's so important that we take care in the products that we consume. The skin is the largest organ in your body, and it is the covering to your temple. Our sponsor tonight is Sugar and Spice Soap Company. They create all natural and biblically clean soaps and beauty products. They even have a soap for Midnight Ride listeners. Use coupon code NYSTV to receive 10% off all your purchases. Link in the description. If this is true, then our country is in a lot of trouble.
We have these trips, these special trips. But he said, my daddy takes the bodies to the grocery store and he grinds them up and puts it in the hamburger. And nobody ever knows it.
How can kids 6, 8, 10 years old be describing rituals that come from a book like the Book of the Dead?
Hey, Shawnee, good to see you.
It's hard to get your mind around people being capable of this kind of evil.
What's up, guys? Thank you so much. If you liked anything you see, make sure you check out the links below. Also, I want to give a shout out to trutherfit.com. I don't know if you can see this. It keeps zooming in and out. But we have mugs right now, and you guys.
Hey, boss. Good to see you, bro.
Right now, if you use the code #TourAhead and the code is actually in the description of this. Make sure you guys go check them out. I think our metal ones are actually cheaper than you can find, like the metal rumblers and the things on like Walmart. So it's really awesome deal. Make sure you check it out. Tons of other stuff on there as well. And so with that being said, I want to introduce to you guys Jillian Stone. How are you doing, Jillian?
Thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to get started on this topic tonight, and I'm just so honored that you guys would have me on your platform to discuss this. I have always wanted to be on a midnight ride. This is like one of those bucket list things that I have on my mind. Like, if I could ever do something cool, this would be it. I've been an active follower of this platform for so long, and I'm just so excited to be a part of it for once.
Very, very cool. I'm excited to have you on. I actually went on your podcast, the Alabaster podcast. When was that? That was a few months ago. And so I really enjoyed speaking with you, and I've listened to some of the stuff you guys have done with David and FOJC. So I'm really it's cool to have you on the team. I know, like, it's so weird to be talking to all these people. It really is. I remember when I first started doing it, it was just like I was ecstatic that there was 10 people even listening to the I was like, 10 people are listening. Can you believe that? 10 people. And now it's just to see it grow. And you've seen the same kind of stuff on Instagram. You reach an even different crowd than Now You See TV. So it's really cool to have you part of the team. And this topic tonight, I know that is going to be pretty popular because the person that we're talking about is extremely popular. I mean, she is the superstar of superstars, from what I understand, at least from what I hear around the gym. The kids are always talking about. So tell me about this, because I did not watch the podcast that you.
Well, we're going to check out Taylor Swift and the Occult, and then we're going to check out wars, earthquakes, and severe weather. Living the Book of Revelation. Looks like a good book, a good show.
David did on Taylor Swift. However, I can't help but notice a lot of similarities and a lot of weird things going on with her life, and just obviously almost all superstars are super occult in what they do. That you look at their music videos and such. So tell us a little bit about that, because I think that I really don't even know what to say about it other than this lady she looks like an ancient witch. She looks like somebody I've seen before. So
yeah. So where do I begin? Okay, so as far as your question goes, there are a lot of conspiracy theories based around Taylor Swift, who she's descended from, and I think we get into that a little bit in this presentation. But I presented this on FOJC radio. I want to say a couple months ago, when she had just released her first post. It was after, I believe, the Grammys. Where she was talking about the announcement of her brand new album, The Tortured Poets Department. And so with that, she posted something around that time, about a week later, with a poem that she had written that was very interesting to me, and nobody was talking about it. And it was just so crazy because there was so much symbolism in it. And so I wanted to decode this, because I truly believe that she is trying to relay a message to us, talking about what's really going on with why she's so successful. Basically talking about her iniquities in her genealogy bloodline, and really just talking about the witchcraft aspect of it, because she literally mentions black goo in this post that she posts about. I believe she uses black ink specifically, but it's all very, very interesting. And so I'm excited to get started and to really talk about all of this.
Well, Jillian, take us on the ride. I've got my coffee ready. I've got the Harley stoked up, ready to roll, and so I'm ready to hear it. I'm excited because I read a book one time by Bernays, I believe, who wrote it. Maybe it wasn't Bernays, but he did work at Tavistock, and it was titled "Why Otherwise Reasonable People Worship Celebrities." I believe that's the title. Because I couldn't understand it. I don't understand it. I really, really don't. I've never been one to be like, oh man, this guy's famous, because I do know that with all of that they have going on, like the stuff that they have to do to get there, I realize that, to me, like, I feel sorry for them more than anything. I really, really do. And not all of them. I know some of them are born into it, and then they become a generational person.
Shawnee, I think she's worth $1 billion, and I think she's the only artist that got to $1 billion just on her music, not with product endorsements and things like that. So I'm pretty sure that's right.
Involved in that group, but it's just so disheartening to even look at these things and see how so many people worship them. So I'm excited to hear it. Let's roll. Let's do it.
Amazing. Well, I wanted to start this off because, biblically at least, because I know a lot of you. This is
$1 billion. Yep.
And when we talk about celebrities, I mean, like you said, they've obviously done something to get to where they are today. And there are a lot of people who don't want us to talk about this. They don't want us to expose this because they believe that it's not right. But I wanted to pull up Ephesians 6:10 through 20 with you guys. And it says, "Finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. Put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places.
Wow,
Wherefore,
damn.
take unto you the whole armor of God, that ye may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all, to stand. Stand therefore, having your loins girt about with truth, and having on the breastplate of righteousness, and your feet shod with the preparation of the gospel of peace. And above all, taking the shield of faith, wherewith ye shall be able to quench all the fiery darts of the wicked, and take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God, praying always with all prayer and supplication in the Spirit, and watching thereunto with all perseverance and supplication for all saints. And for me, that utterance may be given unto me, that I may open my mouth boldly to make known the mystery of the gospel, for which I am an ambassador in bonds, that therein I may speak boldly as I ought to speak." So this passage is so powerful to me because it's literally talking to you about how we are in this spiritual battle and how we must put on our armor and we must fight back against these principalities and against these powers and rulers of darkness. And I like to call them the dark courts whenever I talk about them, because it's so true. There are so many levels of evil. And I really believe that Taylor Swift is a major part of this dark kingdom, honestly.
I think so too. I noticed something, how a lot of them they'll do, and this is just for purposes to show, but they do this symbolism, and it really reminds me of the priests in the Bible. They would do this, and when they would give the Aaronic blessing, they would do this symbol, which is kind of like the Spock symbol. And it reminds me of like a twisted version of the priests of Satan. The Bible talks about the synagogue of Satan. And I mean, it's no surprise that, well, I'm not going to get into that, but it's interesting that these symbolisms
it's glaring already.
Like they are the high courts of the dark side.
Hang on, let's try and fix this.
They have their priests, and I believe Hollywood is, and not just Hollywood, but anywhere the show, like when you're talking about like movie stars and even music stars, not all of them, but a lot of them, I think have signed something to where it's like they have to embody this propaganda for the dark side. They have to, like, they don't have really a choice if they want to keep going or if they want to continue being successful. And even then, I don't even know that they have a chance to get out with all this stuff coming out with Cat Williams talking about P. Diddy and just P. Diddy in general. They raided his house, and all of the stuff that's going on with that is finally being exposed. Obviously, it's been going on for a long time, and people have been talking about it. People have been warning people about it. I don't know how many times I've told people that I know, like, do not go and do this. Don't do this. I even have friends that have been to Hollywood and left and ran as far as they could, and crazy stories that I can tell you, but it's amazing to how much people really lift these people up. So
No, yeah, it's absolutely insane for sure. And I think that we can start on I guess this first way that we fight back. And I think that one of the biggest ways that we can really take back our world is by understanding the way that the dark courts communicate. And one of the biggest ways that they communicate is using a system called gematria. And gematria is a system database of words converted to numbers that are added to create a sum. And this system is literally how they all communicate, name themselves and children, and pass along predictive programming without the masses knowing. But there are a few like us who do know. And so here's some examples like 9/11.
That's a good link, Bas. I'm going to check that out and maybe play it tomorrow.
Was one of them, and there's a bunch of predictive programming gematria around that day. I bet all of you guys know the conspiracy theories about 9/11, and the predictive programming is pretty crazy. Or even 2/22 in the occult is a big day for them. And for a name, Beyonce is 33 in gematria, and Taylor Swift's gematria number is 66. So that one's really interesting to me, because in Revelation 13:18 it labels 666 as the devil's number, and it says here in Revelation 13:18, here is the wisdom, let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. Okay, so when you kind of unpack that, it's the number of a man. So if you take into account the way that these people communicate, and their number is 666, you know, that's should stand out to you as something to really note here.
I mean, definitely should note that. I think anytime that I mean, obviously she probably picked her name. I don't know. Is this her real name, Taylor Swift, or is this something?
I honestly, I think it may be a stage name, but I haven't looked up her actual real name at all.
Interesting. I wonder, because a lot of, like I said, a lot of these people pick their names, and so if the gematria, they definitely follow the gematria things, and the zodiac. It's every rich person that I know, that I'm talking rich. I'm not talking like millionaires rich, but I'm talking plus millionaire, hundreds of millions of dollars. They are doing every move that they make based off of gematria and the zodiac. Like that is 100% a fact. And anybody that knows any multi-millionaires, we're talking $100+ million, they use this stuff. And almost all of them, I can't say all of them because I haven't met them all, but I'm telling you, like, this is a huge part of their life. Everything that they do is based off of these stars, just like in the book of Daniel. You have these magi. You have magi that are doing everything that's based off the stars. They're advising the king based off the stars. You even have in the scripture a story of spiritual warfare based off of these signs and predictions. The Bible says, when it destroys Babylon, can your sorcerers save you? Did they tell you? Did they warn you of this that's coming? And so this is huge in all major religions of the world, but it's also, especially when it comes to the synagogue of Satan, people who are literally purposefully corrupting the world that we live in. So yeah, it's definitely significant, I think, especially if they chose their name. That's really significant.
Oh yeah, it all works for a very dark purpose for sure. And when we move on to, you'll find that it gets even deeper than this, because the Tortured Poets Department Taylor Swift released her Tortured Poets Department album on April 19th, which I don't know if you know this, but it is the first day of the Feast of the Beast for Moloch. And it's a 13-day cycle of preparation. And the 19th, the first one, is actually a fire sacrifice. And there are a ton of different happenings on April 19th that revolve around fire and revolve around just mass sacrifice. And so it was very interesting that she picked April 19th for this Tortured Poets Department to air. And it's interesting.
And Diane, that proves my theory that your name sort of denotes your character. I reckon your name shows what your character is.
Because to note that April 19th is, the Feast of Moloch, where you're literally sacrificing and torturing children. And her title, it's literally in the title of her album, it's the Tortured Poets Department. So it's very, very different to really think about here. It's interesting, to say the least.
I would say too, like a lot, I guess, I've been really researching lately just the whole religion of these Nephilim kings, these Nephilim bloodlines, and Moloch is huge. Moloch means king, MLK. This was found in the Ugaritic text or Ugaritic text. It was found in all of their worship. This king, they would sacrifice their children to him. So MLK, when I say MLK, I'm not talking Martin Luther King. Maybe that's why he chose his name too. I have no idea.
Right? Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too.
But that's exactly what it's marked as in the Ugaritic text, MLK. And this is where we get our Moloch. But these kings who would be Nephilim kings, who they believed that they embodied the spirit of the Messiah, their Messiah. And they would be born, they would literally...
A daughter as well in a bathtub.
Send their...
Wrong button.
Children through fire to this, and it's weird. I've been really researching this stuff, and it has to do with some kind of weird reincarnation thing that they believe that when they sacrifice these children through the fire, that these children are now born into the next life without the knowledge of the former life, and therefore they're able to be used in the army of the Nephilim Messiah. It's really crazy, man. It's like I've been wondering, like, do they believe this now? Do they believe that all of these children that they're going to be able to use in the next life? And looking at like some of the etymology of words such as infantry, and stuff like that, there's these weird correlations that this might be true, but that's definitely part of the Nephilim King bloodline Messiah religion. Like, it's just has all the markings of it. It's pretty intense, pretty crazy.
No, absolutely. And you're actually really on track with what I'm about to say next, because it really has everything to do with the reincarnation theology that they really believe. And I want to talk about something that is very tied into the mystery religions. The last really known documentation of it was actually in the Library of Alexandria, and as you know, it was completely destroyed. And we're going to be talking about theurgy and what that is. And theurgy is a power higher than all human wisdom, embracing the blessings of divination and the purifying powers of initiation, and, in a word, all operations of divine possession. And to kind of go on with more of a definition of it, it is a very dark magic, and it is known to them as the occult as divine magic, and it's one of the two major branches of the magical arts, and the other being practical magic or thaumaturgy. And theurgy describes the ritual practices associated with the invocation or evocation of a presence of one or more deities called god forms, especially with the goal of achieving henosis, which is uniting with the divine and perfecting oneself. So in a way, like, you were totally like ahead of me here. It's pretty incredible to see what they truly believe in.
Reincarnation and the serpent biting its own tail, and this age, every age, because they believe that people are reincarnated every age, but they also believe that if you are killed before the age of accountability, I believe it might even be younger than that, but if you're killed before that age, you have an opportunity for your spirit to jump into another body. But they believe that
that's my favorite channel in Australia, Sky News.
people who have been
For
alive
that
that haven't
reason.
been murdered before as a baby, they could remember their past lives, but these babies will not be able to remember their past lives and can be used in a better way. It's so strange the way that they believe, but there's obviously, I don't know if every one of them believes this, but this is kind of the underlying worship of MLK or Moloch that really stands out to me. I mean, it's crazy that they have these divine magic rituals that most people don't believe that they work, though most people don't believe that it's true. But when we're talking about soul thieves and people who steal souls and literally reuse these souls, I believe that they use them or that they body snatch and inhabit people using these. I guess I would say enslaved souls, and I wonder, and I'm not trying to get ahead of you. I hope I'm not. If I am, just tell me to shut up for a second.
No, you're good.
But when you look at the Nephilim in the Bible and in the book of Enoch, it says that because they were born of gods and sons of gods and the daughters of men, that their spirits would be an evil spirit roaming the earth forever, working against mankind. And I can't help but wonder if these people, when they get to Hollywood or they get to that level of fame or money that obviously requires a toll. There's always a toll, right? There for every level, another devil type thing. You got these higher tolls you got to pay. And I would imagine that when they get to that level and they basically offer their soul up as a contract, that they are
that's the channel I watch for news, Sky News.
They're seeing proof that this is real. We did an episode about this one girl was talking about the gold juice, and I think she's probably crazy, maybe, or she's not. She's talking about something.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. So like you have that, and these people believe maybe because of these ancient entities that their spirits are literally going to keep going because they can maybe hear from these entities. Like this entity spoke to me. This entity was alive before. They told me all about these different things. I know that this to be true. But you have to wonder, are these magic rituals literally changing their DNA and causing them to become these Nephilim that are roaming the earth? And that's how they can continue kind of jumping into these bodies and keep going. I don't know. There's a lot of theories there, but I'll stop it at that because I know I'm probably impeding your presentation.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely fine. I love the commentary, and it's really at the end of the day all about a conversation about, how to distance yourself from the dark world, really. And I think that to go even further, the reason why we're talking about theurgy, why I'm talking about it a little bit in depth here, is because in order to decode what Taylor Swift's post was that she made, we need to understand exactly what we're dealing with here. And this is exactly it. And it's funny that you were talking about the origins of this reincarnation, because I was doing a lot of research, and this theurgy ritual is literally derived from demiurge. And I know that you guys have talked about demiurge a few different times, but if people do not know who demiurge is, he is what the pagans believe to be the corrupt or really evil version of Jehovah God, our God. And in order to appease him, the elite families would offer themselves and
there's an evil name I haven't seen for a while, Rumsfeld.
Their children up for him to possess a vessel to maintain a physical rule of the land. And there are so many different examples of this happening throughout history. Cleopatra was one of those examples of a fallen angel literally possessing her. She literally claimed to be the reincarnation of Isis, you guys. And she ruled over the land up until about 30 something years, 30 plus, maybe 40 years before Jesus was born. And she literally was possessed by this fallen angel Isis to rule over the land. And I mean, it's really, really crazy. And you think about Taylor Swift, Cleopatra's father believed he was Dionysus, which is basically Apollo, or the Antichrist, basically the Antichrist Osiris figure that you see. And a lot of the it's interesting to see how the mystery religions are kind of immersed into each other. Like you can't really tell exactly where they all kind of originated from, but they all the aspects of these religions, they get it from so many different just cultures, and they all kind of mesh together. And in the instance of Egypt, it really was combined a lot with the Roman and Greek kind of mythology, and
yeah.
you can see that with the demiurge and all of that, because you see the same symbols across so many different cultures and for the same exact meanings as well. So we're going to be talking about that because where I lead this, you guys, I mean, a regular closed-minded person would look at this and say you are absolutely crazy. But those of you who have that discernment from the Lord and really want to understand further how Taylor Swift is able to literally brainwash an entire generation to follow her and vote with her and do all of this crazy stuff in our country. We need to really understand this. I think that people who are more open-minded are going to be able to understand why that is. And so, unless you have something else to add, John, let's dive into the post because
Let's do it.
okay, amazing. So I'm going to read this out loud, you guys, but I do want to say I do believe that this is a witchcraft chant. So I will give a strong rebuke in the name of Jesus at what we're going to be diving into. This is not good. I do not support this. I do not believe in any of this. But in order to know our enemy, we must understand what they believe to further fight for the souls of this nation and
Well
for this
said.
world. So let me just start by reading it, and let's take a deep dive into what all of this entails. So I enter into evidence my tarnished coat of arms, my muses acquired like bruises, my talisman and charms, the tick, tick, tick of love bombs, my veins of pitch black ink, all's fair in love and poetry, sincerely the chairman of the Tortured Poets Department. That's the post that we're going to be looking at today. What do you think, John?
Man, I all I can say is that sounds creepy. Is like, I guess like people will probably look at this just like I did when I was a kid. I looked at like bands like Metallica, even like Marilyn Manson and Ozzy Osbourne and all of these different crazy shock rock, I guess is what they called it, groups. I looked at it as these guys are putting on a show. Like they're trying to shock people and they're doing this. And I was naive. I was stupid. But that's what most people's mindset is on this, right? They're saying, oh, she's just trying to shock people. It's cool to be goth. It's cool to be magic nowadays. You know, Harry Potter, everything's cool. And they don't really think about like these words actually mean something. These words are telling a true story here. They're telling a story of what it means to be a muse. Like a muse, people don't understand what a muse is.
Mhm.
But a muse is someone who delivers these words. You know, I think the muses were the 7 daughters of Hercules or something like that. I don't know,
They
maybe
were,
it was Zeus, but
Zeus, yeah.
Zeus, yeah, the 7 daughters of Zeus. So you have these muses, which this is where you get the word museum, etc. But they are being acquired. What did it say, with bruises? Is that what it said?
She said that her muses were acquired like bruises.
Acquired like bruises, so like beat onto her. Interesting.
Beat into her, yeah.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot there. I mean, I'm pretty sure that if now Taylor Swift, I don't know enough about her yet. I'm learning more and more as you speak. But she for her to know the stuff that you're talking about, the worship of the dying god and the Nephilim kings, Moloch and stuff like that, for her to know that, in my mind, not either she's an avid researcher, or she is a high priestess in the order of Dionysus, or order of
right.
One of these like you said, they're different names. It depends. If you go all the way back, you're going to see Enlil. You shoot
Right.
forward, you're going to see Marduk. You shoot
Right.
forward further than that, you'll see Baal, and then you'll see, like the same name, different people, but
Yeah.
she has to be involved in this in some kind of way. That's what I'm thinking. You're asking what I thought. That's what I think.
Oh yeah, and I mean, just to add on to that too, before I continue with the first line of this poem that we're going to decode, the amount of research that you and me have put into understanding this. Do you know how much time that takes? So for Taylor Swift to really be like posting things like this, I mean, the amount of knowledge that we have on this subject, she actually lives it out. So can you imagine the amount of dark wisdom and dark knowledge that she has, that she is able to really artistically and just under everyone's nose put this stuff out. I mean, there's no way that she can't be a part of it personally, because she writes all of her music, right? So it's pretty interesting to me just how dark this gets. So I want to start off with her first line, and it says, "So I enter into evidence." And that is a direct invocation of something dark right there. I enter into evidence. And she first starts off with her tarnished coat of arms. She says, "So I enter into evidence my tarnished coat of arms." So that's the first line we're going to be working with here. My first instinct was, why is her coat of arms tarnished? And to tarnish is to destroy, to ruin. And so she has to be talking about her bloodline here. And that's where a lot of conspiracy theories open up. But I'm going to go all the way back to her family crest. And she is the descendant of Thomas Mayhew, and he was actually the founder of Martha's Vineyard. So I want to, this, I'm speechless here because it's so incredibly crazy, her Mayhew family crest. And it is literally a crest with a knight's head, and you know that if you have a knight's helmet on anything, it means like the faceless handler, basically, the faceless ruler. So that dates back to a secret society immediately. When you see anything that's like a headless knight, that means that you have someone who is in control of you, but they are way too up on the pyramid for you to know who they are. And I compared it to the sigil of Baal because it's interesting to see these little, the four corners of like the black, and then you have the three little leaves going off each one. It's the same type of thing going around here. And you see this weird triangle looking thing, as well as like the triangle type star thing. And you see a star right here along with three ravens. And I think it's very interesting. And you also see the star, the pentagram. So it's clear to me that this family crest symbolizes some sort of witchcraft family tree here. Wow. So the next thing we're going to be talking about is the muses acquired like bruises. You think about demonic possession. There are so many instances of demonic possession, what it does to the host, right? You're getting beaten around. Like, you've seen the horror movies, and I'm sure that a lot of you have seen those horror movies of those possessed people and these demonic entities throwing them across the walls, punching them, scratching them, hitting them, etc. And all of this happens during demonic possession, right? And even you see like, I forget exactly which verse it was that Jesus literally delivered that man from the legion of demons.
That link looks really good about the mega churches, Diane. I might stream that.
And he was completely just battered and bruised as well. So I believe it was exile, right? And it's
Shawnee, I don't know if they copyright, so I'll do a copyright show tomorrow and we'll see.
Pretty crazy to see that sort of verbiage for that, because she acquired them. And what does that mean to acquire? To acquire, it means to have on hand, to accept, to literally put on. I used to play video games, and one of them was like the Legend of Zelda. and you would be able to
Yeah,
acquire
okay.
a bag, acquire a piece of food, and so
Yeah.
you would have it and immediately like ingest it or put it on you. So this is all like she is acquiring the muses. And this is where it takes a very interesting turn, because we're going to be talking about the muses of Apollo. And it is so incredible. Do you have anything to add or anything before I go on?
I think just with, I'm in my mind, I'm totally picturing these contracts that these artists have, like P. Diddy, when he signs people, he's acquiring muses, and he's also controlling them. But I just can't help but think she's talking about that, like the art of acquiring. I don't know. I'm interested to hear. I don't have any preconceived thoughts on it other than that. Like I just can't help but think she's part of the contract maker. She's one of the contract makers. So.
Oh, absolutely. And this takes a very interesting turn, because did you know that the muses are the mothers of sirens, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. The muses were so the muses were,
Wow.
if I'm right, correct me if I'm wrong, they were your daughters of Apollo, or is it what you're saying, or daughters of Zeus? I can't.
They were lovers of Apollo. Like all of them were in love with Apollo. And this is where we're going to get in here, because Taylor Swift is always talking about the love of one man. This man that treats her terribly, this man that ignores her, this man that makes her feel depressed. And then all of a sudden she loves him and loves him. And he's the best thing that's ever happened to her. And how she wishes that she could love something that belongs to somebody else. It's so interesting to see the way that I believe Taylor Swift is talking about her love of Apollo.
Wow, Moscow underwater, vast. That's pretty deep, literally.
The love of Moloch, the love of Baal. It's a very interesting thing. And I know that a lot of you may think that it sounds crazy, but if you just stay with me, it gets a little bit further, and it's pretty interesting.
So interestingly, one thing that I find interesting about this, so I was just reading a little bit, but the muses were the 7 daughters of Zeus, and I guess they, like you said, they fell in love with Apollo. And in Greek mythology, I believe Zeus, those where the muses come from, but I think that Apollo, I mean, is obviously the Nephilim king. He's the Antichrist. I guess according to biblical theology. So she's acquiring these muses. So what does that mean? She's pimping them out?
No, I believe so. Here's where the theurgy aspect comes in here. I believe that Taylor Swift underwent a theurgy ritual to
Hi, good to see you.
Famous, to literally
thanks for popping in.
Fallen angels, all of these 7 muses inside of her, to give her the most luring, the most persuasive, and the most enchanting music platform that has ever been in existence.
And tell me this real quick, because I do not follow mainstream music. I know she's popular. I know that because I see kids with their shirts all the time, where whatever, just anything they can do. She was a big part of the Super Bowl. Just a famous person. But you're way younger than me. You're young enough that you could be my daughter. And so in your opinion, this woman is one of the most famous artists to ever exist.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
To give you a brief kind of comparison, 3, I guess, they compare her to 3 different people. The first is Elvis, the second is Michael Jackson, and the third is Alexander the Great. They literally compare her to Alexander the Great. And we're going to get into this next line of her post, where she mentions her talisman and charms. Did you know that Alexander the Great and Aristotle explored a variety of instructions on how to harness spiritual forces through talisman, and more that are each designed for that theurgy purpose?
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I I would definitely not doubt it. Let's put it that way. I haven't ever looked into their practices, but I know Alexander the Great was, a lot of people would say was one of the,
Hercules. Or
yeah,
compare him
yeah.
to Hercules. What's interesting too is this is totally off topic, but you could even compare him to the way that Baron Trump looks. They look like, if you take a side by side comparison of Hercules / Alexander the Great, like the coins, and you put it up to the side comparison of Baron Trump, it's very weird. Very, very weird.
I can imagine, like Baron Trump. Have you read the time traveling book?
Yeah.
Baron?
I've seen all of the, yeah, it's crazy. It's just like, and more examples on top of examples on how elites do this and how they literally are out to quite seriously invoke any antichrist that they possibly can. And Taylor Swift is currently, right now, working to make the antichrist into her lover. And she's trying to make all of these women, all of these men, all of these kids adore and worship Apollo the Antichrist because she's in love with him. So her job, in my opinion, is to make him look desirable. And I just have a feeling that she's going to be working with him in some sort of way that is romantic when the time comes.
You're talking about Baron Trump. You think she's going to be like literally? Is that who you're talking about, or Apollo in general?
Apollo in general, but okay. I mean, that
would be crazy. You heard it here first. If that happens, that would be nuts.
Right. You never.
Okay, are they saying Baron Trump looks like Apollo? That's what they're saying.
No, at this point, it's pretty crazy what these people are willing to do. And like I said, she is literally claimed by the media to be the Alexander the Great of this music industry.
She's just exposing
how ambitious she is. And to go down.
I didn't know that. That's something I did not know. I realized that she was popular. I had no idea that she was that popular.
Yeah, I mean, it surprises me sometimes on how popular she is. I mean, I used to listen to her when I was little, but I never really was so obsessed to where like I couldn't do anything without listening to Taylor Swift. But there are people out there that I know personally that literally sit there and like cannot function without listening to her music, like cannot do anything without checking what she says or anything like that. I think people are so just enchanted by her, quite literally. And she has a song called Enchanted. And it's just so, it's very weird, to say the least. It's a magic spell. Like it can't be anything but a magic spell. And
it has to be, because I see nothing desirable at
all
all about the way she looks or the way she sounds. Like there's nothing at all. So it must be an incantation of some sort, because I just don't get it.
Brutal, but true. Let's look into her next line, because we're talking about witchcraft, which I think that we can get really good in here. She talks about her veins of pitch black ink, and it's crazy. Having veins of pitch black ink is quite literally black magic. That you cannot be practicing anything but black magic if you are talking about having black veins. And
wow.
There are a lot of different examples of this, and I mean, it often revolves around blood magic as well. And
Shawnee, it's true. If you go and look at old statues of Apollo and that, they've got the Statue of Liberty's face.
I used to watch this show back when I was before I was convicted of, just rebuking the show. It was called The Vampire Diaries, and one of the instances of pitch black veins was when the leading witch in the show, she was taught a new form of magic called expression, and it was a blood magic that literally required her to sacrifice like 13 bodies at a time to be able to harness enough power to do what she wanted to do. So she literally would invoke this expression magic, and her entire body, all of the veins in her body would turn black. And like her eyes would turn black. It was this really creepy thing, and I always wondered about it because what significance is that, and does that really happen? Well, it turns out yes, it does, because black goo was actually discovered on the first prophet of Amun-Ra's tomb. And do not ask me to pronounce his name, because it would not go over well. It's like Dejed Konsiu F Onk, I think that's how you pronounce it, but I could not, I couldn't tell you.
Close enough. I think
Okay.
you might have done better than David would do on the pronunciation. I
have no idea. All I'm sure of is the Onk thing, because that's a real symbol. But basically, with this black goo, when someone died, they were said to become a form of the god Osiris, like you said earlier, John, who is associated with the death and rebirth. Osiris is called the Black One in various funerary texts, and is often depicted with black skin and in the guise of a mummified body. Black is also the color associated with alluvial slit deposited on the banks of the River Nile after the annual flood receded. Since this fresh and fertile soil provided the ideal environment for, I've lost that place, an environment in which seeds for crops could germinate and grow, it was viewed as being inherently magical and regenerative, because it was so, it was just so fertile, like what was growing there, the amount of nutrients. So people associated the Nile, like sludge with it was because they had correctly worshipped Osiris, and so they started literally rubbing it all on elitist tombs, etc., to try to raise them from the dead, basically, to regenerate them and for them to ascend. But not everyone got the goo treatment, though. Evidence suggests that it was likely to have been reserved for the social elites, like I said, and some of the earliest examples were from royal burials. So I'm trying to pronounce his name, but I believe it's Tutankhamun. His gold coffin was cemented in the middle coffin in the picture that I'm showing here, and it was literally covered in black goo. And the black goo was also available to non-royals, but the family had to be able to afford the treatment. It was very expensive to do.
I've heard of the black goo before, but never the details of it. This is pretty fascinating.
Do it. And just some, do you have anything to add on the black goo?
I think it's really interesting because, just
a
lot of things, like I've actually experienced a situation where I was talking to somebody and their eyes turned black. As I was telling them it was what I was telling them, because we were doing some kind of, and I don't want to say too much about it because it was a long time ago. It was a lot of things were going on at the time, but we were shooting this documentary, and this documentary exposed some really crazy stuff. In fact, Senator Nancy Schaefer, she was one of the people backing this movement, and in the course of this documentary, she's had murder-suicide with her husband. She had been filming children in Texas that have been in CPS care or foster home care that were living in cages, and she'd been exposing that they've been giving children to hardcore criminals on purpose, or like without giving background checks and everything. And this is mind you, multi-million-dollar business. Children is a multi-million-dollar business. So anyways, the guy, billion, probably, who knows, is probably the most lucrative business in the world. So we're doing this documentary, and a guy that I'm working on this documentary with freaks out. He's like, we can't do this. He's like, this goes all the way up to the top. This goes just fear, just afraid as all get out. And I said, I don't know why you're worried, man. I was like, God, it's like Jesus is more powerful than any of these people. And like his eyes turned black, and like the room went dark. It was really, really creepy. But I think that there's definitely something to that. I don't know what to think of that. And you remember hearing about the black-eyed children that were showing up, and whether that's true or not, I have no idea. But
Yeah.
I don't know what this means, but I think that maybe it's
Yeah, I didn't buy into the black-eyed children.
an ability, like there's something about real full demonic possession. I'm not talking about just possession to where a person's acting like an animal from time to time and slamming their head in the wall. I'm talking about a full possession of a person where you would never know that they're possessed, because that's who they are. Like whatever's inside of them is who they are. And I think that I was dealing with this type of thing with this experience that I had. It was a perfect possession, not just trying to take control of your mind. It's not like some kind of chimera demon that doesn't know how to distinguish civilized behavior versus non-civilized behavior. This was something deeper. So, and that's a whole nother topic, but I just thought, I'd mention that.
That could be a good midnight ride. Yeah, that's absolutely insane. And off the record too, here's maybe some research for you to do, is linking black-eyed children to the Amalekite tribe in First Samuel. And I believe, it's First and Second Samuel that they're mentioned, but they're
Really?
Yeah, they're known to shapeshift into animals as well as children, and so that might be something that you
I
may
saw a video you made on Instagram, actually.
Yeah. It's pretty interesting, for sure. But
I was just thinking, where did I hear that before? Oh yeah, your video on
I
Instagram.
found it on the bed.
Yeah.
right. I love talking about everything biblical theory. It's absolutely incredible and really helps me. It just changes my paradigm every time and helps me look at the world in a more, I would say, more close to God lens, as far as why he does things that he does. And
things make sense a little bit better. Why are things so jacked up? Oh, it's because of this. Like, this goes way back. Yeah.
True. Yeah, but to go back to, I guess, wrapping up the whole Taylor Swift thing, I think one of the biggest things I wanted to talk about too is the amount of snake symbolism that she has currently in everything that she does. Her whole Reputation album was literally a snake, and you have like that serpent worship / like Apollo energy you have there. And I read that Apollo was actually connected to snake worship, and he often appears in the company of muses.
Wow, I never knew that.
He appears, with his, I guess he said that he had sacred animals, and it included a roe deer, swan, cicada, hawk, raven,
Cicadas, that's interesting.
crow, fox, mice, and snakes. And apparently Apollo had killed Python in Greek mythology, that was killed by Apollo at Delphi, is what it says. And
like the oracles of Delphi, like there's a lot of interesting stuff dealing with Apollo on that. But when you talk about the serpent, it's reminiscent of they were all of these entities, whatever level they were at. I think in the Ugaritic text is the first mention of the shining ones, and they were called Rephaim. Rephaim were like shining ones, and they had I wouldn't say it's the first mention, but other than the Bible, obviously the Bible mentions Hallel bin Shahar, the shining one. But these shining ones, they would appear like there was levels to these shining ones. In the Ugaritic text, there was a Lama, which was literally divine, and then there were two more levels. I cannot remember what they were, but there was one that was like a second level kind of demon. So we were talking like Nephilim spirit, and then there was another that was more like a chimeric, animalistic type spirit. The one you often see inhabiting people that make them act like wild animals type thing. And the oracles of Delphi, Apollo would visit there from Hyperborea. He would go and he would visit this place. It's pretty interesting story. Just throwing that out there. If anybody that hasn't researched what you're talking about here. This makes so much sense when you see it played out with, like, I don't know, people like, well, we're talking about Taylor Swift. So like you see this whole mythology being told another way, I guess you could call it. Even Disney does it. You know, they tell this mythology 15 different ways. It's pretty amazing.
Oh, no, you're so right. And I think to kind of just finish off is, I mean, there's a lot of information here for sure. And I know a lot of you may be having to watch this back and take notes, right? Because I mean, it took me quite a long time of research to figure all of this out little by little, and even months in advance, you kind of learn more things that make sense along the way as well with your research that you may not have been able to see from a different lens while currently in. But I think one of the biggest things is understanding that Taylor Swift's music is very luring and it's very enticing. And I think the biggest standout is that her music, as far as now this new album, caters towards those who have weak spirits. And what I mean by that is depression, anxiety, sadness, maybe going through traumas. This particular album was made to lure you in if you are one of those people who has any of those. And
so like 100% of the people in the world almost, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And she wants you to relate to this, right? She wants you to be drawn in by the music. And it reminds me of the siren call, really, because at the end of the day, she's not giving you anything. She's validating your feelings and allowing you to sit in that depression. Now, I want to remind you guys what happened to the disciples when they let their grief of what happened to Jesus consume them. What happened? They fell asleep. They were asleep while Jesus was in his final moments with them. They could not handle it. They couldn't spiritually equip themselves. They fell asleep. And what I'm trying to tell you guys is that you cannot fall asleep. Don't fall asleep. Don't pay attention to this, because as luring as it is, I mean, as someone who grew up with Taylor Swift, right? There's so many parts of me that say, oh, but I remember singing in the car with my mom. Those times, you don't know what you do now. Part is now is that you know better. And now that you know better, why are you allowing yourself to fall asleep? You can't do that. You can't.
She's right.
There's so much more joy outside of Taylor Swift. And I don't even need to name a few. I'm sure you can think of one right now. But in 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 8, it says to be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about, seeking whom he may devour. Taylor Swift is trying to do that to you. She's trying to keep you depressed. She's trying to keep you anxious. And she's trying to continue to make you go through previous traumas with her music because you can relate to them. There's a difference between being able to relate and manipulating you into not changing. God wants you to be always changing. He's always changing you with the things that he teaches you. Satan doesn't want you to change. And neither does Taylor Swift. She wants you to stay right there because she needs you. She needs you to have that power. And that's kind of just the ending point of what I want to say, because like me, I am 22. I'm still, I guess, in that generation that is, I'm in between of a
She's pretty wise for a 22-year-old.
Gen Z and a millennial type thing. But like so many kids like my age, they're not where I'm at. And as that's okay, I was built different to really recognize these things and to be I mean, it was a blessing and a curse to my parents, but I was always an authority tester growing up. And so many people younger than me, the same age as me, and older than me as well, they have issues with not questioning the authority. Why would you want to follow someone who is dark, who posts dark things,
Yeah,
morbid
good point.
things in her writings and in her lyrics? I'm not going to listen to her music, but I've only heard that there's a bunch of blasphemies calling herself God and cursing out the Bible in her full on album. And it's sick, absolutely sick. And why would you want to follow someone like that when you know that your Lord is Jesus and you should be defending him?
Yep.
Because if I'm not mistaken, Jesus defended you and he died for you. And we need to be doing at least the bare minimum and stop supporting people who spit on Jesus. And I guess that's all I have to say about that one.
Yeah, that's thank you for saying that. I think that hopefully there's other people out there that are listening to this that are especially in your position, your age, even younger, just like can see that these people were basically baiting a trap when they set up whatever they set before you. I remember when I was younger, it was depends on what your music you're into, but country music was basically, in my opinion, a psyop to get everybody drinking and sleeping around.
That's so true, yeah.
And then hip hop was basically a psyop to destroy a whole generation of people that grew up. I mean, because if you do everything they talk about on those videos or even idolize what they do and find yourself in those situations, there's no cash money, big money, rising to the top, sitting on jets. There's a place in a prison cell for you. And if you do make it that far to where you're riding on jets and stuff like that, you're also got some Diddy at the top controlling you. You've got something weird going on, some diddling going on. And so it's a trap, it's like they set the cheese there, boom, there it is. And like you said, like she's making it okay to curse the Bible, to do magic, to do all these things.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if you guys really know anybody that does magic that tries to be like these people, but their lives are not very, they're not very, I don't know what the good word for today's youth is. Their lives are not great.
No.
Most of the people that you see doing magic and stuff like that, their lives are in a wretched state.
Yeah, their lives suck. Let's just put it bluntly.
Yeah, most definitely. Now, one more thing I wanted to ask you. I don't know if you entertained this or saw this picture, but there's a picture of Taylor Swift, and then there's a picture of the LeVay girl.
Zena LeVay,
and they look almost identical. Like if I were to say, like if I were looking for a missing person or wanted poster or whatever, I would say this is the same person. This has got to be the same person. Obviously, different generations, different time periods, but knowing what we know right now about how people can prolong their youth, they can prolong the way they look based off of using sacrifices of some sort, like children or whatever. At least that's what they're saying, or blood, that they're able to, prolong their longevity. What do you think about that? Like
yeah. This embarks me on something I was going to share at the last statement, but it's even a better closer. So I personally, I've heard about the Taylor Swift conspiracy theory with Zena LeVay. You can actually still find Zena today. She has like an Instagram, everything. You can check out what she's into and all of that. It's not good stuff at all. But I haven't actually personally looked into like the
Okay, I'd like to see Anton LaVey next to Taylor Swift, because usually you look at Justin Trudeau. He looks like Castro. Who is his father?
Like the leading like evidence behind it to suggest that she's actually Taylor Swift's mother. But what I have done research on is where the Satanic Church has literally led the music industry by literally saying that there are some backing tracks that you could be listening to that literally have the frequencies to make you, knowing or not, participate in a satanic ritual. And how you have to be so careful about what you listen to. And one example that I had was in 1 Samuel chapter 16, verse 23. To give you some context, Saul completely just disobeyed God, completely disobeyed him. And so because of that, God allowed an evil spirit to persecute Saul. And this harmful spirit, it says in 1 Samuel 16:23, and whenever the harmful spirit from God was upon Saul, David took the lyre, which is the harp, and played it with his hand. So Saul was refreshed and all was well, and the harmful spirit departed from him. That David's playing for the Lord, how incredibly glorifying it was to the Lord, it made this evil spirit go away. The same thing happens when you listen to the wrong stuff. You get evil spirits coming toward you.
Yep.
It works both ways. And as far as the conspiracy theories go, I would totally be willing to look further into depth on that one. I mean, we've seen that along this journey, you've seen that her whole coat of arms is quite literally rooted in witchcraft. So, and you see that Apollo is directly associated with the raven and the snake, which is literally in Taylor Swift's coat of arms, the raven is. And so, I mean, as far as that goes, I really am open-minded to that because there's so many aspects that you could look at as far as Taylor Swift's stature, her power, her influence on today's generation. I really wouldn't be surprised if she was actually related to the LeVay family.
I mean, you have to wonder because I think that, and maybe she's not, it doesn't really, you know, in the whole scheme of things, it doesn't matter that much, but, you know, just looking at what they're capable of cloning, supposedly cloning humans, which I know they've cloned a sheep before. So I would imagine that if they can clone a sheep, they can clone a human. And I imagine that just because there might be a law in the United States or somewhere that they're not supposed to do it, I guarantee you that somebody's dumping billions of dollars into doing it. And so that's always a possibility. But like you see.
And Shawnee, he also killed 5 grasshoppers so he could have sex with the priestess, Solomon I'm talking about. So that's why he sort of is not the wisest man in history, because he sacrificed 5 grasshoppers for a root.
A lot of these artists and movie stars, they look so similar. And of course there's the, what is it called, the designer babies, and so it would make sense that even if they don't clone them, they'd be like, okay, this person obviously has the genetics for acting, or they have the genetics for being a muse, or being a person, whatever, like they have these genetics, right, being a vessel. So let's just keep on making this person over and over and over again. And that could be what the headless thing is all about. It's just like,
and to the designer babies, I would encourage all of you to look into avocado farms and all of that. It's pretty interesting, the symbolism of the avocados from Mexico.
So they stole our men from the Bible then, Di?
Kind of catchphrase in Oprah's involvement with her avocado farms, as well as to look up Epstein's Island and how they had an avocado farm on Epstein's Island. And basically the theory is that that was a place to literally create designer babies. And so they would take celebrities like Beyonce, they would take, you know, actors, actresses, whatever, and take them to these farms and essentially take their DNA and create designer babies with vessels. And it's pretty interesting to see what goes on. The more that you look into it, it's not that far-fetched when you take all of this into account, take the mystery religions into account. And I mean, you have to take this seriously. I mean, these people from thousands of years ago, they knew what they were doing. They weren't stupid. They really weren't. They built everything that we see today. They had access to technologies that we will not see. I mean, I don't believe that we'll see it again, at least for the indefinite future. But technologies that, I mean, built the pyramids, that literally figured out how to create boats and sail thousands of miles away and be able to navigate. I mean, these people weren't stupid and they believed all of these things. So you have to really take that into account when you look at, you know, why is Jillian saying this? Why is John agreeing with her? What is this whole purpose behind this video, and where does Taylor Swift tie into it, right? You really have to take into account all of these things, because if you don't, I don't know. I mean, you really have to do your research here. That's all that I would say on that one.
Yeah, because we've been naive. I mean, all of us have at some point or another. Maybe you've woken up a lot younger than I did. I mean, but we've all been naive at some point or another. We've believed the world is different than what it actually is, based on what we're told. Or, of course, most people don't realize this, but when you're born into this world, you're not even born free. You have to pay a toll, right? You have to pay a tax to the day you die. On top of that, you are taught principles based off of your public school education or school education.
Mm-hmm.
You're given the idea of what you live on right off the bat. So everything you know is programmed into you from the time you're born to the time you're an adult, and sometimes continues even after you're adult. Sometimes people allow, and we have to allow some sort of programming where we're actually like, we have to read things and do these things, but we also have to be of the, I guess we have to be wise. We have to be thinking, okay, is it possible that like something bad took over this system? Is it possible that the bad guys took over and now I'm trying to piece things together again to see what's right, see where the truth lies? Because it's not far-fetched to think that something bad took over the system. It's not far-fetched at all. In fact, it would be naive to think it hasn't, because the world we see is a perfect example of evil thriving. We see murder, we see war, we see all of these diseases being released upon humanity. We see extreme poverty to the point of like so poor to have nothing, living on the street, to extreme wealth to the point to where people are building bunkers worth millions and millions of dollars and sitting on jets in Epstein Island. And the extreme disparity there is just crazy. And to think that they haven't taken over the media systems. In fact, we know they have. If you actually do any amount of research, you'll see that all of the media systems are controlled by 2 or 3 people. And you'll see that all of the governments have links to a prior king of England. All of our presidents were related to a King John. And you'll see that all of the kings are related to each other, and they've been passing their lineage down for generation to generation to generation. You'll see that there's a structure here. There's a power structure. Don't be naive and think that there's not. There's a power structure. And once you see that, it's a little easier to see the wizard behind the curtain over in the land of Oz. Because this, you're looking at an incantation.
Always Oz.
It's an incantation. That's what I love about doing what we do and the things that you do as well, because the whole point is to try to reveal that wizard behind the curtain.
It's so true. Yeah.
Oh, that was cool, Vast.
So anything else which you'd like to add, Jillian, before we get off of here, and any suggestions on how people can come across your content and how they can listen further? Obviously, the Doctrine of Christ series that you're doing with David is on YouTube.
Doctrine of Christ.
And we'll put the link to that in the description. But what else do you have going on?
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I enjoyed this so much. I can't even believe that I'm going to be able to have this come out. I'm really excited. I've been a really big follower of your page for a long time, and still watch whenever I can. I'm a little bit of an early bird, so I never can quite make it through the entire Midnight Reg when it first airs, but I do catch up in the morning.
You did pretty good tonight. So
yes. But yeah, thank you guys so much again for viewing this, for listening to what we had to say. I go by Jillian Stone on all of my platforms. I just started a YouTube. I haven't quite posted anything on it yet, but I'm getting around to it because everyone's telling me I gotta start a YouTube. So I'm gonna try to eventually. But you can follow me on Instagram. I'm always active on there. And yeah, you can follow my journey as I'm trying to expose the truth through the lens of the Bible and what the Lord has in store for me. I also always do Bible studies every morning. Right now we're going through First Kings, and you can find all those Bible studies on my page right when you click on it. So if you ever are wanting a community, ever feeling like you don't have any friends or that you can't seem to get in a Bible study in by yourself because you just don't have any time, that's why I started it, so that you can feel like you're included in a community and that you feel like you have a friend, and I'll always be your friend. So but with that being said, yeah, thank you, David, or thank you, John, so much. I'm used to saying thank you, David, on the Doctrine of Christ, but thank you, John, so much for having me on. I just enjoyed this so much, and I can't wait to work with you in the future.
Definitely, we'll do it again soon. I know that, you know, David, like tonight, he's taking a vacation. That's the first for David in a long time, but he has a lot of other broadcasts going on, and so sometimes it's weird not having David on here, to be honest with you. So when you said David, I just automatically didn't even think anything of it. But it is weird because we've done the Midnight Ride since 2016, and probably continue to who knows how long, because it's different without him. But I appreciate you being on here, and I appreciate.
Okay, guys, switch to the next one. Oh, did he do that? Hang on. Yeah, this is it here.
So it's very interesting to see what's going on.
Yeah.
So do you have anything in regards to the escalations? I don't really have a whole lot to talk about. I mean, I think that pretty much that's pretty common knowledge. Pretty much everybody knows that things are crappy right now.
Yeah, things are pretty crazy. And, you know, even in Israel too, because America is still trying to push the two-state solution. America is still playing both sides of the fence.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, we got caught. We got caught. So the people of Israel are very wary of America right now, and they should be. They should be. The Biden administration is funding the enemy and going behind Israel's back to try and make back end deals and lying to them. So the people are having none of it. It looks like like Netanyahu and his group in the cabinet, in the Knesset, are kind of having to put up with it, unfortunately. But there is, you know, he's had people on his cabinet step down. Benny Gantz, who, as far as I'm concerned, bye-bye, Benny.
Yeah.
You know, he's a leftist.
So let the Lord hit you on the way out.
I'm with Netanyahu, as far as I know.
Yeah, don't let the good Lord hit
Hit
you
your butt on the way out.
something like that. But yeah, bye-bye is all I can say. He's a major leftist, and he was part of he was one of the co-prime ministers back from 2021 to about 2023, and he was working as hard as he could to get a two-state solution. Well, holy cow, that is not what God wants. He says, do not split my land.
Right.
Do not divvy my land up. And Benny Gantz is one of those guys. So bye-bye. That's all I've got to say. Everybody's like freaked out because no, what's Netanyahu going to do? Well,
okay, let me put it this way, Bas. I like anyone that kicks Muslim terrorists' butt. That's what I like.
I think it's a grand idea for the leftists to leave.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there, and another kind of prophetic headline is another fallen pastor.
Really?
So yeah, it's pretty sad. Tony Evans, who's got Oak Cliff Church here, and he's big all over the internet. Wonderful teacher. I've always loved Tony Evans, and his daughter is Priscilla Shirer, and she's got a fabulous ministry of her own. That woman is a preacher and a teacher. but he stepped down for an undisclosed sin. He said it was years ago, but he is now stepping down, which tells me, I mean, this is just me being the jaundiced eye, being the person that's always critical. I'm the person thinking, okay, so you just got caught.
Yeah.
So we've got to step down because you just got caught. You know, somebody's coming forward. And I don't know if he was friends with.
You put in Satan and the word Quran come up. No way.
With T.D. Jakes. Their churches are just a few miles apart. Honestly, they're very, very close to one another. And T.D. Jakes was hanging out with Diddy. Was hanging out with Diddy and was doing some pretty nasty things. And people have been exposing Jakes for years and years, but his congregation refused to listen.
Yeah.
That he was involved. Well, then when Diddy went down and T.D. Jakes' name was all over that, they called him a power bottom.
Oh my goodness.
I know, power bottom. What is that? They said that he.
Don't Google it.
They said he commanded a room when he came in. He made the atmosphere. So I don't know, that's creepy to me. But I don't know if they were friends, if whatever. But that's another fallen pastor, and again, right here in DFW too. Come to think about it.
That's one of the big problems. That's one of the big problems with over glorifying pastors. I mean, this is something that I dealt with very young that I should have never had to deal with. It's something that helped me was this book written. It was, I don't know if you can get it still. You probably still can. It's called The Subtle Power of Spiritual Abuse. But pastors, people in power, not just pastors, but people in power are, they can be subject to manipulation, and they have a greater responsibility of avoiding temptation, because succumbing to temptation when you're in a role of leadership, you can cause immeasurable damage to a congregation. And you know, they have to be incredibly careful about thinking more highly of themselves than they ought, because the power can go to their head and they can become narcissistic, and they can do a lot of damage. But it's interesting because I went through something that was really hurtful. So, you know, in the church that I was raised with, everybody pretty much worshiped the pastor. And it was found out that he had been cheating on his wife with, you know, young girls, not young, not below age, but like, you know, girls younger than his wife. And man, they just treated him viciously. And that was the first thing that I had an issue with. Is like, wait a minute. So you're always telling us how none of us can drop below God's loving arms and grasp. And here, you know, this guy screws up and you just kick him to the curb and don't do anything to help him. It took me so long to understand that situation. In hindsight, I wish I had been in a position of power in order to mediate, saying, you know what, he screwed up. How can we help him? Right. So he recognized his sin. He needs to repent from his sin, and he needs to get stronger than that, because once he gets stronger, once it's public now, you might as well use it to the benefit of the household. So you know, how else can healing and forgiveness ever take place? And that was really indicative of that congregation and that church and how it.
That's true, Shawnee. Palestine was named Palestine as an insult to the Jews because the ancient Jews' enemy was the Philistines. You're right, exactly right.
Ultimately, was just eaten alive from within, because that kind of thing continued to happen. They were so afraid of sin that they would just cut it out every time that it would happen, and they did this thing, mark and avoid. They used it as a weapon. There was no forgiveness. There was no repentance. It was like, oh, you screwed up. You're no longer clean. Get out. And that was one of my first experiences with that in a church. I had a rosy childhood growing up, to where, you know, it's just like, oh, I'm the faithful remnant. We're with those who believe, you know, and stuff like that. And then when these things started happening, it devastated me because of how quickly everything crumbled. It's like once that was exposed, and they just started eating themselves alive. And group, you can't survive like that. You have to have, and I understand that it's hard. Trust me, I do. There's very hard things, and there are certain things that absolutely, when safety is involved, you've got to, get people in safe situations, get them out. But where there's,
you're not saying is that he should remain a pastor. You're not saying he should remain a pastor.
No, I'm not saying that he should remain a pastor, but he should
given and work through some kind of a process.
Yeah, and there's a church down in Medford, Oregon. It's one that I went to. What's it called?
Oh, wow. Is that a comet?
I'm not sure, but I think it's
Joy Church. It's called Joy Church. It's part of a network of churches. There's one called Manna House. But what they do when that happens is you're removed from your position of leadership, and you've basically gone through a rehabilitation process, to where it's like you need to acknowledge what you did, you need to repent from what you did, you need to talk to those people who were involved and hurt, get everything out in the open, and then start the healing process. And then once they've proven themselves, then they can start to reconcile and maybe be put back into a situation or a position of leadership if it's right for that group or for that church. And I think that's the right thing to do, because now you have somebody who has overcome sin and temptation, and they're stronger to help other people for it. Because now they're in a position to where when someone says, I've succumbed to a sin and I've seen you've overcome it, can you help me? And I think that's how the household is really meant to help each other.
That is brilliant. That's brilliant, because my friend Sandy McGill was telling me about when she was out at Burning Man, and this guy came in one day on Tuesday wearing nothing but a tutu, just naked as a jaybird with this big pink tutu. She said he was a big, husky, burly guy with hair all over his chest. I mean, he was a man, but with this, and he was holding his gay lover's hand. And she asked him if he wanted to have an encounter with the spirit of truth.
No, Muhammad married a 6-year-old and consummated the marriage at 9 when she was still playing with little dollies. Yeah. The Ayatollah command. No, I'm not going to get into it.
And he said yes. And so she laid hands on his shoulders, and she started to pray. And all of a sudden he went, oh, the spirit of truth is Jesus. And he started weeping, started crying, and he ran out.
Awesome.
I debate them sites on Facebook, Shawnee, Christians versus Muslim discussion group, and I use Christian Prince's arguments because they can't debunk them. They can't argue against his points he points out.
The next day, dressed as a man, without the lever, in his right mind, a former pastor, his wife had cheated on him, and because his wife cheated, they took his pulpit, they kicked him out of the church. He lost his family, he lost everything. He totally lost his identity as a pastor, and somehow the identity that he picked up was the gay lifestyle. And he has since been absolutely restored.
That's awesome.
So but just by her just literally praying for him silently and saying to you, do you want to have an encounter with the Spirit of Truth, who of course is the Holy Spirit, but she's at Burning Man, so you don't just come right out and say Holy Spirit, right?
Yeah,
but
that's awesome.
So that's how far that kind of hurt can take a fallen pastor.
Oh yeah.
He didn't even do anything wrong. I mean, maybe there was something in the marriage he wasn't, he's putting the church in front of his wife or something like that. I don't know. But the church has a bad reputation of, eating its own.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I mean, you do have the scripture that says not to suffer the spirit of Jezebel. So there are things you have to do.
Shawnee, where are you getting the 12-year-old from? The Muslims say Mary was 12 years old because they use Catholic documents that says Mary was 12 years old. But we know that in the Bible, nowhere does it say Mary's age when she got married to Joseph. So that's why they say that.
In order to protect your congregation. But that also means protecting the people. Yep.
Jezebel's a sexual spirit.
That's right.
Yep,
Yeah.
that's true
So
too.
there's
Yep.
a right way to handle these things and a wrong way to handle these things. And
Yeah.
it really boils down to loving God and loving your neighbor. People get so, I don't know, it's not even fair to say this in a general context. Some people in churches, it because 70% of churches aren't doing things correctly, it's more common than not for people to get this holier than thou attitude, to where they don't want to deal with forgiving somebody because it might blemish them, which is just terrible.
Yeah. Yep. Unfortunately, the religious spirit is an ugly spirit. That's what the Pharisees would do. They would just tell you, sorry, you can't come back to the synagogue. Well, where did the whole community meet? The synagogue. And that was where everything happened for them, is the synagogue. And so that's why a lot of people refused to follow Jesus or joined that crowd that said, crucify him, because what was the big threat that the Pharisees had over the people? Oh, we'll just kick you out of the synagogue. You won't even be a Jew anymore. You'll just be these lousy Romans. It's being kicked out of the church with no hope of ever going back in and being labeled the rest of your life.
Yeah.
So that's an ugly, ugly religious spirit. And didn't Jesus call them? It was John called them the den of vipers, and Jesus called them whitewashed tombs.
Yeah. Yep.
So don't want to be either one of those.
No. So I hope he gets the help that he needs, and I hope he repents from whatever it is that they found out, whatever it is that's going on. Because I like to see forgiveness. I like to see people repent and get strong. I don't mind people being ugly. I don't mind if you fall and if you sin. That just happens. I mean, we're living in a world full of it. So if you succumb, get help. Don't be ashamed.
Yeah.
Don't let shame and fear stop you from loving God and loving your neighbor.
Never will.
I'm always reminded of Judas. Like, he was a thief, and Jesus put him in charge of the money. I mean, that's true for all of us. It's just like we're all dead in trespasses and sins, and we've all been given responsibility. So don't screw up like Judas did. Do what it takes to repent and heal,
Yeah. Jesus gave him the money bag because he gave him a chance every day to turn from his sin and do the right thing. It is the same thing for us.
Yeah.
Does the same thing for us.
Yeah.
So, absolutely.
So more news. The AG, the Attorney General, Merrick Garland, is being held in contempt of court because he doesn't want to release dirty videos on Biden, apparently.
It's contempt of
Congress.
It's contempt.
Contempt of Congress. Yes, that's what I meant to say. You're right.
Hey, come enjoying this. They're covering all the relevant topics.
Which it's interesting because I found out about this because Matt Gaetz is on the Tim Pool show. He was talking about this earlier this afternoon. And
I love his eyebrows. The Spock brows are the best.
Yeah, he's pretty awesome. I like Matt Gaetz. I also like the Tim Pool show. When you guys get a chance, go watch that because it's pretty hilarious. Because he's pretty mad that that's what they had to hold him in contempt for. It's just like there's so many worse things that he's done, but it's because he's withholding videos about Biden. I mean, like, come on. So hopefully something comes from this. I'm really hopeful that the Great Tribulation is against the thieves and the perjurers, those people who have been, getting away with evil forever.
Yep.
I'm hoping that that's who the Great Tribulation is against. So I hope that all this it's all come to the top the last couple of years. We're seeing just how evil and how corrupt the world is, and if it doesn't come out and get cleaned in the Great Tribulation, because I'm looking forward to the tares being burned. You know what I mean? It's just like I'll be there in the fire.
To some judgment.
Yeah, we'll be there lighting them up.
I'm hoping not to be so close that I get burned. I want to be safely removed and somewhere else if at all possible. But I'm looking forward to the day that we're no longer tempted by sin, where things that we can just move on with what the Creator has in store for us. I mean, like, there's so many more wonderful things that we could be doing than dealing with this evil conflict. It's just, I'm excited for that day.
Well, but I do thank the Lord for all this exposure.
Yeah.
Because so many people, I was a patriot. I'm sure you were a patriot too. And I just
Mhm.
could not understand why the rest of the world hated America. Aren't we the good big brother? Aren't we the one that took care of you after war, World War II? We could have taken over Germany. Germany
right.
could be the 51st state, and Japan could be the 52nd, but we didn't. We rebuilt you, or did we? Did we hold you hostage in some way, shape, or form? Because that seems to be what we do to everyone, come to find out. In this whole Merrick Garland thing, he released transcripts of Biden, but he wouldn't release the tapes so that anybody could see if the transcripts matched. He's got 10 days to do so, or the Department or Congress will hold him in contempt.
Yeah.
So they have put the articles forth. He's got 10 days. And if in that time frame the Department of Justice does nothing, because he is literally the top lawyer in the nation. That's
right.
That's what his job is. What his job is. But he's got 10 days, and then Congress is going to hold him in contempt, and they will force him to come in and give them what they want.
Yeah.
An unexpected visitor. Cue the claim to QBE.
So he's got some time to start cutting and pasting, start doing some editing.
Yeah. Matt was mad because he's like, there's far worse crimes that we should be going after him for. With the whole sham, with the convictions that all those on the left are holding up is just like, oh, you're voting for a convict. No, we're not. That's just the justice system being used against somebody. And he's heavily involved in that, and we all know it. It's not a secret. I mean, like, we see the receipts, we see the movement of people. I mean, literally, you had somebody working for the DOD who stepped down to go take a lesser job just to persecute the incoming nominee for the election. I mean, like, come on.
Yeah, and just don't even get me started. So, when it comes to the Hunter Biden trial, it amazed me how it didn't even mount a defense. They didn't even put up a defense.
Yeah.
Now, he got caught dead to rights, but he still pleaded not guilty. So you should make a defense, right? They really didn't make a defense, which tells me they wanted him to get convicted so that they could say, oh, see, justice is blind. Justice is fair. See, President Trump got this and Hunter got this. I mean, it's the same thing, isn't it? Well, no, not at all, because Hunter Biden will probably just get house arrest.
Mm-hmm.
The first time convicted felon, 3 counts having to do with firearms, and filling out an ATF form saying that he was not addicted to drugs while he was buying a gun and very addicted to drugs. His wife at the time found the gun in his truck and freaked out, and she threw the gun away in a garbage can at a grocery store. Mm-hmm. Then had second thoughts, went back to get it, and it was gone. So she went into the grocery store, talked to the managers. The managers pulled out CCTV footage and called the police and tracked down the guy that had pulled it out, who was keeping it in his sock drawer in his closet. And you can't make this stuff up.
Oh, my goodness.
Well, the minute that they called the police and got all that going, of course, this was going to get found out. It's like watching, I'm telling you, the Bidens are like watching a clown.
Good night, Shawnee. Good to see you.
You know how the little clown car pulls up and one clown comes out and then the next one stumbles out, and they get dumber and bigger and stumble more the more clowns come out. That's so exactly what watching them is like, is this watching a clown car.
Yeah. So
that's what happened there. But it just tells me, number one, okay, the president said he would not pardon his son. Right? And all he said was no. Will you pardon your son? And he said, no. That was it. Okay, that's what he says now. But depending on who wins the election, what is the skin off of his back if he wins?
On his way out. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, his way out to pardon his son then.
Yeah, it's not like he sticks to his word. I mean, there's so many times where he says one thing and does another.
Yeah. Yeah, and actually, the press asked Pierre, what's her name, Karine Jean-Pierre, his press secretary today, if he was going to pardon his son, and she would not answer.
Ah.
She would not answer. Yeah. So it is good to see judgment coming to the wicked, and Lord, we pray that justice would be given to the victims, the widows, the orphans, the sojourners, the oppressed, and there's a lot of us out there. Bring us justice, Lord, as you judge the wicked.
Yeah. Well, I imagine so we're so very close, and I think that so much of the end time events it really hinges on what's going on right now politically. I know a lot of people, that's one of their biggest gripes is, why do you think you're so great that it all hinges on the United States? It's affecting the entire world. This isn't just the United States. It's just, we live here, so this is what we're talking about. Imagine that if somebody were running a show in the UK, they would be pointing things out from their perspective. But we can see that the world is marshaling against those who believe. You're literally seeing a separation of good and evil. Like, evil is being exposed unlike it's ever been exposed before. And based on what's written in the scripture, we can start making guesstimates on what's going to happen next. So we know that there's fighting age men in massive numbers in our country now that we don't know who they are, right? So even
and the same in many other countries, but Ireland,
yeah. So the expectation is they're probably going to do something very soon. I mean, like, they're not homeless right now. They're living in hotels. They've got money. They don't have to work. They're just sitting idle. I imagine that there's going to come a call for them to do something at some point in time. It seems like they're just waiting in the arms to be given permission to do whatever it is that they're going to do.
It does sound like that. They're just waiting for the starting gun to go off.
Yeah, either a call to arms, or they're going to cut off funding for them.
And they're going to get desperate, and then they're going to go start seeking how they can meet their needs.
Well, I'm telling you, I'm here in an apartment complex in DFW, and there's been huge turnover. It's basically little South America now. Still very clean, I have to say. It's very clean, very quiet, except for on weekend nights by the pool. I would think they would be buying Modelo and Corona, but they seem to like some Ultra, Michelob Ultra, tons and tons of Michelob Ultra.
I bet they don't like Budweiser Light. Actually, they would.
And these people don't work. They don't work.
Yeah.
They're here all day.
Well, and I think that another big part of it too is we're seeing an increase in spiritual possession and people who are just they allow spirits to rack and ruin their lives. So, Pastor Dave, we'd asked him yesterday, where he thinks we are in the timeline, and he said he thinks the abyss has been opened. I tend to agree. It seems like I'm wondering, just because as I speculate and theorize. I wonder if all those spirits that have been cast out and bound throughout the last several millennia, they've been in that abyss, if they are not being released, and if that's not part of that curse from Zechariah 5, to where they're coming out and finding homes to live in now for this last day, this last battle, this last fight, and that's not what we're seeing. How else do you explain all the? Oops, my focus here is messing up.
Yeah, your focus is a little bit out.
Blurry creature. How else do you explain why they're freeing, the prisons and the mental health institutions and stuff like that? These people are ripe for spiritual possession, and they're coming in here uninhibited. They're literally boating them in and flying them in here and putting them up in hotels. I mean, like, for what other purpose other than end time events?
Yeah. Well, and what has CERN been trying to do for the last 10 years? Open the portal to hell. Where is CERN located? It's located right over the Temple of Apollo. It's built on top of the Temple of Apollo, Apollyon, Revelation 9:11. When Apollo, the destroyer, comes up out of the abyss, and all of his minions with him, I wouldn't doubt it if they had opened it. Yeah. I know they've tried pretty hard, and the last time that they fired it up was the day of the eclipse.
That's true. Yep.
So who knows?
This might be open already. Well, it's interesting. What are they waiting for? This is why I kind of bring up what's going on politically, is because
the abyss isn't open because the sun's not darkened, so the abyss is not open.
We're right at that we're right at that pivot point where it's like everybody can see that something's about to snap, but we're so close to the election that I think it's just natural to associate it with that. So either the current administration is going to remain in power, or a new administration is going to come in and set things off.
Bit of both.
I'm thinking the latter.
Yeah, I'm hoping the latter, because there's at least hope in that. Although so many things could go wrong, because we know that the leftists and the communists among us and the Satanists among us, and that's it. And that's one good thing I can say about Vladimir Putin. He came right out on Russian television and said that America is being run by Satanists.
That's right.
And he's right.
He is. He's absolutely right.
Right. Absolutely. So, yeah.
Oh, you know what? I hadn't actually considered him in, because I've been trying to put together a list of who, out of the people who are alive today and right now, who would actually fit the patterns from what we know of the two witnesses. I've been ignoring Putin. Putin could be up there too. I mean, he's one of the most powerful men in the world. So I've been looking at who are the most powerful men in the world who could torment the world.
And I'm telling you, this guy is speaking more truth than anybody in our government.
Yeah.
He is. He's comes right out and he says the truth. America stabbed us in the back. Bill Clinton said this and then he reneged.
Yeah.
Hey, NATO, you stabbed us in the back. You said you wouldn't come on our doorstep, and you did.
The only thing he has against him, though, is he's against Israel right now, because they're supporting the Ukraine. So, yeah, that kind of takes him out of the running for that, because you can't touch Israel. When you touch Israel, you're touching the apple of God's eye.
Well, he hasn't touched him yet.
True.
Now, there's a lot of speculation because Russia, their biggest export is natural gas. Their natural gas line to Europe, it was a great big part of their economy. And who is emerging very quickly as their top competition? It's Israel. They have massive underground and offshore deposits, and they are building, oh gosh, I can't remember the name of it. Is it Behemoth or Leviathan? I think it's Behemoth, because Leviathan is one of their big oil rigs. So I think that they were naming the actual pipeline Behemoth, which is really weird, because that's what we're going to talk about today is Behemoth and Leviathan. But yeah, their big oil rig is called Leviathan. And wow. I think that their pipeline to Europe that they're in the middle of building is called Behemoth. Craziness. And if they get it there, boy howdy, they could seriously bite into any profits that Russia is making. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good point. They are sitting on a lot of resources. Same thing with, I believe even that they have some agricultural. They've been really developing technology like crazy. I mean, like not only in the defensive, because they're one of the world's superpowers, and the whole Israel is like the size of what is it?
New Jersey.
New Jersey. I mean, it's tiny, and they're a world superpower. And superpower from a nuclear perspective, a defensive perspective. But they also do other things technologically. So they're leading the agricultural space and being able to farm in literally deserts. And then, they're sitting on a lot of resources too, which it's amazing how they've been blessed.
Yep, it sure is. And well, who knows about Behemoth and Leviathan? But if I were Israel, I don't know that I would name anything Leviathan. It's not
Leviathan,
good.
Lucifer, Behemoth. This is like, can we just come up with new names? Why do we have to pick those?
Yeah, let's pick some heroes, not the scary names, not the demonic things, please. Oh, this is Jezebel. What? What?
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
So,
speaking of Leviathan, as long as we're talking about it, let's skip over to the Bible.
Yeah. So here's the deal. Ryan Peterson was on back in April, and he started talking about Behemoth and Leviathan, and he talked about them in the natural and in the supernatural, because especially with a living creature, they can have a spiritual connotation, a spiritual manifestation. So he got to talking about those. Well, we ended up, texting and emailing back and forth, trying to figure things out. And so anyway, but we were talking about how Leviathan and Behemoth could very well be in the book of Revelation. And yeah. So Job 40:15 is where you're going to find Behemoth and Leviathan. And Behemoth, it seems very much to be a long.
So I didn't watch it because I knew I'd be showing it with us one day. So I didn't watch it yet.
Yeah, dinosaur.
If I'm going to stream something, I don't watch what I'm going to stream because I like to be surprised like you guys do.
So if you
I
say
checked the first
dinosaurs are
5
not in the
minutes.
Bible, yeah, they are. They're in Job 40:15 through chapter 41. And in chapter 40:15, God says, "Look, behold,
Good night,
the
Bill. God
behemoth
bless, mate.
which I made along with you." Now, when he says behold, he's saying, look right there. Look right there. So obviously Job can see this thing. It's right there. The behemoth whom I made along with you, which means on day 6 of creation, not millions and millions of years ago. Millions and millions of years ago would make the Bible a giant lie. Because when was the first death, the first recorded death of our earth? It's the animal that God had to slay to cover Adam and Eve. So if there was all these dead things millions of years ago.
Wow, that's a good pickup.
And that makes the Bible a lie. So, behold, the behemoth whom I made along with you. Now, realize this. He didn't say, like if you look at if I look at the bottom of my Bible in the notes, it says probably a hippopotamus or an elephant. Well,
right.
God's not dumb or forgetful. He can say, behold, the rhinoceros or the hippopotamus or the elephant. He knows what those are.
Oh, good pickup again.
He eats grass like an ox. All of his strength is in his hips. His power is in his stomach muscles. He moves his tail like a cedar. Now in the King James, it says he has a tail as a cedar. The sinews of his thighs are tightly knit. Now, if we go back to just, he moves his tail like a cedar. Okay, that takes our leading contenders.
Yeah, that doesn't really scream elephant, does it? If you've seen an elephant, it's got like a little, just a little
whip.
tail.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a cedar twig, right?
Yeah. Cedar branch.
Yeah. So it starts talking about how the sinews of his thighs are tightly knit. His bones are beams of bronze. His ribs are like bars of iron. He is the chief of creation. The chief of creation. What is that? Is that the biggest thing God made? That's what it seems to me, the biggest thing God ever made. Only he who made him can bring him near his sword. Surely the mountains yield food for him, and all the beasts play nearby him. Okay, so if the mountains are yielding their food, he's eating plants. And if the beasts of the field are playing nearby, they're not afraid of him.
I didn't know they still had Tupperware, Diane. But there's more factories shutting down. Like you said, it's getting worse every day.
He's not going to eat them, obviously. So we're talking about something that doesn't eat meat. So he lies under the lotus trees In a covert of reeds and marsh, the lotus trees cover him with their shade. The willows by the brook surround him. Indeed, the river may rage, but he is not disturbed. He is confident, though the Jordan gushes into his mouth.
Wow.
Though he takes it in his eyes, and I don't know what that means. Though he takes his, or one pierces his nose with a snare. Basically, it's saying no one can pierce his nose. No one can hook him.
Right. In other words, he's huge.
This thing is huge, and it lays down and it blocks rivers. It eats plants. It's unassuming. It doesn't seem like a big threat. Whatever this thing is, doesn't seem like a threat. Don't be scared of it. You know, God says, "Look right there, Job. There's a behemoth," and he doesn't go.
A brontosaurus would be no threat.
I'd run.
Sounds like a brontosaurus, doesn't it, guys?
You know, and so this thing, whatever the spiritual manifestation of this thing, it seems very much like a brachiosaur or a long-necked dinosaur.
Yeah, a
The
brontosaurus.
spiritual manifestation of it doesn't seem to be a big threat, but it lays down and it blocks the rivers, living water, the Holy Spirit. It blocks off the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
And it even says, you know, who can take him in the eyes or pierce his nose with a snare, you know? So yeah, so we're talking about a giant creature who in the spiritual blocks the Holy Spirit. So, and then surprisingly, I'm talking to Ryan, and for some weird reason, I opened up the Bible to Ezekiel 28, and it's the proclamation against Egypt. And what does it say? It says, "Behold, I am against you, O Pharaoh of Egypt." Now, Pharaoh was a slave master. That's what he was. "Behold, I am against you, O Pharaoh, king of Egypt, O great monster who lies in the midst of the rivers, who has said, my river is my own, and I have made it for myself. But I will put hooks in your jaws and cause the fish of your rivers to stick to your scales. I will bring you up out of the midst of your rivers, and all the fish of your rivers will stick to your scales." And then at the end, it basically says, I'm going to cast you out on the land, and I'm going to let the beasts of the field eat you. You're going to be their food. Ezekiel 29.
Oh, I was on 28.
The proclamation against Egypt. "Behold, I'm against you, O Pharaoh." And then all of a sudden he starts giving the exact same description he gave of
Great monster who lies in the midst of the waters, who said, yep, there it is.
Yeah, there it is. "I will put hooks in your jaw." You know,
That
back
reminds
there
me of
in
Ezekiel 38 with Gog of Magog.
Yeah, I'll put a hook in your jaw.
Hmm.
I'll put a hook. So it makes me kind of wonder, maybe is Gog of Magog a behemoth spirit or a Leviathan spirit? Because we're going to go down here, we're going to look at Leviathan here, and Leviathan is another one. Can you put a hook in his jaw? Can you get him with a harpoon? It names all these different things. So we've already, you know, God's already set.
So we're not going to be here long enough for them to replace us with AI anyway. This will all be over within 10 years.
You know, he's the only one who can pierce his nose with a snare. You know, and then he says, well, I'm going to put a hook in your jaw. You know, these other people can't do it, but I can. I rule you. I rule you. So, and then when you go into Job 40, it's God's power in Leviathan. You know, can you draw out Leviathan with a hook, or snare his tongue with a line which you lower? You know, are you going to go fishing for him, in other words? You going to go fishing for him? No. Can you put a reed through his nose or pierce his jaw with a hook? You know, and the really scary thing, he says, you know, will you play with him as a bird, or will you leash him for your maidens? In other words, do you think that he is so harmless that you would let your children play with Leviathan, that you would turn your own family over to this demonic spirit? How do I know it's a demonic spirit? Well, we'll get to that in a minute. It says, can you fill his skin with harpoons or his head with fishing spears? Who can remove his outer coat? Who can approach him with a double bridle? Who can open the doors of his face with his terrible teeth all around? His rows of scales are his pride.
Origin Home puts energy in your hands and cleaner energy solutions at your fingertips with solar and battery options to electric cars, smart charging, and more. Origin Home connects you to cleaner products today. Head to the Origin Home Hub.
The future of money is managing your budget without a spreadsheet.
Okay. Shut up tightly with the seal. One is so near the other that no air can come between them. So he's got scales down his back that are so close together that it says they stick together and cannot be parted, and no air can come between them. Okay, so this thing has this ridiculous, oh, here we go. His sneezings flash forth light, and his eyes are like the eyelids of the morning. Out of his mouth go burning lights, sparks of fire shoot out. Smoke goes out of his nostrils, and from a boiling pot of burning rushes, his breath kindles coals, and a flame goes out from his mouth. Strength lies in his neck. Okay, remember that. Strength lies in his neck. The folds of his flesh are joined together. They are firm on him and cannot be moved. His heart is as hard as a stone. Okay, that's pride again. His heart is as hard as the stone, even as hard as a lower millstone. Now, this is fun. When he raises himself up, so when he comes up like this, the mighty are afraid because of his crashings. They are beside themselves. Though the sword reaches him, it cannot avail, nor does the spear, the dart, or the javelin. Okay, so when he raises up and they throw, his skin is so hard. It's already said his skin is hard. That even a javelin cannot pierce it, right? Well, it's funny because what's it say in the very bottom of my Bible in the notes? Probably a giant crocodile.
I'd say more like Drogon from the Game of Thrones, the dragon. Giant.
Thank you.
Impierceable.
That's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fire breathing.
We're talking about a fire-breathing sea monster, a fire-breathing dragon.
Yeah.
And the word dragon is throughout scripture. A lot of people say that dragons are mythological, but the
Probably
Chinese,
not.
yeah, probably not. I mean, God talks about them right here. And here's the really fun part, it's the year of the dragon in China, and it's funny because they've got I can't remember if it's 20 of them, 20 different animals, the year of the rat, the year of the monkey, now it's the year of the dragon. Well, it's funny how all of those are real except for the dragon.
Well, yeah, and dragons are found throughout almost all cultures. And the word dragon was predominantly used, I think it was only recently in the 1800s maybe even sooner than that the word dinosaur was actually even introduced as a language, as a word in language. Prior to that, what we refer to as dinosaurs were called dragons.
Yeah, absolutely. And just because nobody has supposedly seen one recently doesn't mean it's a myth. But it's been sold to.
There's a lot of archaeological evidence. Surprisingly, there's this. This is one of the most shocking things that I've learned recently. Is there's a surprising amount of archaeological evidence to actually support the existence of fire-breathing dragons. Now we know that animals can breathe fire because of the bombardier beetle, right?
Yeah.
So we know that there is an animal out there that can mix chemicals that can literally breathe fire. So it stands to reason that there could be another kind of creature that could throw sparks and breathe smoke out of its nostrils.
100%.
And surprisingly enough, archaeology has got freaking evidence. I mean, they literally have paintings and carvings of people, armies of people taking on dragons, fire-breathing dragons.
I never knew that.
How can all these different cultures all over the world draw and sculpt and paint and etch and carve all of these dragons and dinosaur stuff, and they're all doing the same thing, but they've never seen each other. And not only that, we were told that they didn't live together. So there's these things called Ica stones in Peru, and there's this whole it's all a big hoax. Well, who's going to sit around and polish all these stones and then etch these carvings in hundreds and hundreds of stones so that they can make this big hoax? Nobody's going to go to that much trouble. And on these stones, it shows long-necked dinosaurs being ridden by people, and T-Rexes chasing, people who are screaming, Triceratops being ridden into war. So if people never saw those things because they never lived with them, because they only lived millions and millions of years ago, how in the world could they draw them so accurately to what archaeology has found?
Yeah. Well, they've found flesh on those bones, like flesh that is like still stretchy.
Yep.
So they can't be as old as they're trying to make them, to try and claim that they are. We're missing something. They're hiding something. And also the T-Rexes, recently learned that they have cavities in their head, which are not necessarily part of their nasal passages. That there's speculation that they did the same thing that the bombardier beetles do, to where they hold two chemicals that it can actually mix together to breathe fire.
Oh, that's lousy. That schmucked. Yeah, because we already know, we've been told, we're not stupid, especially in Britain. Britain loves this kind of stuff. They love chimeras. They love doing experimentation. They're trying to revive some of these dead species.
Jurassic Park.
Because they want to study them. Yeah. Yeah, we all saw Jurassic Park. We know
saw how that ends, right?
Clever girl.
Yeah.
Give me a break. So, but here's the deal. That's all in the physical. That's all in the physical. They've got the DNA. They can do it. And they probably already have. Who knows? Who knows? But here's the deal. It says that Leviathan is the king over all the children of pride.
Wow.
The king over all the children of pride. So pride seems to me to be a very narcissistic spirit.
Yes.
And we have seen an unbelievable explosion of narcissism in our day.
Yeah.
You can go on YouTube any day and find 5 or 6, even more people who are experts on how to deal with the narcissist in your life. I didn't hear anybody talking about a narcissist 10 years ago.
Me neither. It's a fairly new understanding to me too. I'm like, when I started learning about narcissists and narcissistic behaviors, I started like putting puzzle pieces together, going back for a while. Like, oh, that's what they are.
Yeah, yeah. And so here's the deal. You've got Behemoth, and Behemoth is that thing in your life that doesn't seem to really be a problem. It's it seems to be this little thing, nothing to worry about, but it's blocking the Holy Spirit. It's cutting off the life. It's enslaving you. Okay. And you need to be aware of that Behemoth. Okay. And in the supernatural, Leviathan is a prideful spirit, a narcissistic spirit, a hard-hearted spirit. It's very hard-hearted. And if you have a narcissist in your life, you know how hard-hearted they are. They've got no love for you. It's all for them.
Yep.
So, yeah. So anyway, so that's kind of the manifestation of that Leviathan spirit, is this pride and this narcissism. And didn't Dave Bryan say something about a Leviathan spirit last night?
Yeah, I believe when he was talking to
Sandra Rare.
Hunting dogs get drowned by kangaroos, Vas. Kangaroos are pretty tough animals. They're not pushovers.
Right.
Was it DJ that he was talking to, or Ray? He was talking to somebody, and he asked what they were, and they said that they were a Leviathan spirit. Because I remember he was talking about the eyes turning into a shape of a snake.
Yeah, with those slits, those up and down slit.
Yep.
Yeah. And so, and they said it was the spirit of Leviathan that was in her, and that it somehow, she was marked and it owned her. And he just simply said, no.
Nope.
Oh, that's what it was. He said that he owned her through Anton LaVey, her father, through a generational promise. And he said, well, that's funny because I've just adopted her. Her name is Deborah Bryan, and she is my daughter and a daughter of the Most High God. And Leviathan went, whoop, was gone.
See ya.
No fight, just gone, just gone. Can't face the facts, can you? So Leviathan is this sea serpent, this fire-breathing dragon, and we find him in Revelation 12:9. So the great dragon was cast out, that serpent of old, called the devil and Satan. So he's the dragon, the serpent of old, the devil and Satan, who deceives the whole world. He was cast out to the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. So that's Revelation 12 is when he's cast out of heaven, and Revelation 20 is when God laid hold of the dragon, the serpent of old, who is the devil and Satan. I think he likes to use all of the names for some reason. Let's just make sure we know what we're talking about here.
Yeah. I'm sure we get them all.
And he binds him for 1,000 years. And he binds him for 1,000 years. So, but what if I told you that these two reptilian beasts, or maybe just their spirits, I don't know, will be on the earth for the end of days?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's in Enoch. I mean, I know you're a big Enoch fan. You probably know Enoch 60, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have that by any chance?
Yeah. Let me
Cash flow feeling complex? End of financial year is better off on zero.
Getting a lot of ads.
This is Isaac, and Isaac always likes more. That's why Isaac uses car sales to buy a car. We have over 200,000 new.
Enoch.
Yeah,
67 through 10.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And on that day, two monsters were separated. A female monster named Leviathan to dwell in the abyss of the ocean over the fountains of the waters. But the male is named Behemoth, who occupied with his breast a waste wilderness named Duodain, on the east of the garden where the elect and righteous dwell, where my grandfather was taken up, the seventh from Adam, the first man whom the Lord of spirits created. And I besought the other angel that he should show me the might of those monsters, how they were separated on one day and cast, the one into the abyss of the sea, and the other unto the dry land of the wilderness. And he said to me, Thou son of man, herein thou dost ask to seek to know what is hidden.
Yeah. So, and what they're talking about there is he's asking about the day of the Lord. And this is what comes up is this, on that day, because he's talking about the day of the Lord on that day. Okay, so we know the day of the Lord is the return of Jesus, the tribulation, the great tribulation. So now let's look at Revelation 12. What do we have in Revelation 13? What do we have in Revelation 13? We have two beasts. Yeah, the beast from the sea,
yep,
and the beast from the land. And what is Behemoth? He's a beast from the land. And what is Leviathan? A beast from the sea. Now, here we go. Then I stood on the sand of the sea, and I saw a beast rising up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and on his horns 10 crowns, and on his heads a blasphemous name. Now the beast which I saw was like a leopard, with feet like a bear, mouth like a lion, which is all on Charles's crest, right? The dragon gave him his power, his throne, and great authority. And I saw one of his heads as if it had been mortally wounded, and his deadly wound was healed. And all the world marveled and followed the beast, for they worshipped the dragon who gave authority to the beast. And they worshipped the beast, saying, Who is like the beast? Who is able to make war with him? Well, what does it say in in Job 41? God keeps saying over and over again, who is like the beast? Who's able to make war? Can war with him? Can you hook him in the jaw? Can you hit him with a harpoon? Yeah. So
I think it's even depicted as a multi-headed monster in Psalms.
Yes. Yes, in Psalms, Leviathan has more than one head.
Yeah. Psalms 74, I think it is.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, go find it. See if we can find it.
74.
So, and it also says, all who dwell on the earth will worship him, whose names have not been written in the book of life, of the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. And right now, I'm telling you what, it seems like the narcissists are getting all the attention. So all who dwell on the earth are worshiping the narcissists of the world, who, frankly, seem to be our leaders in our mainstream media and our movie stars.
Mm-hmm.
They seem to, yeah.
You divided the sea by your strength. You broke the heads of the sea serpents in the waters. You broke the heads of Leviathan in pieces and gave him as food to the people inhabiting the wilderness. Huh.
Mm-hmm.
You broke open the fountain and the flood. You dried up the mighty rivers.
And let's go back to
Revelation 12?
Not Revelation 12, Ezekiel 29. What does it say? I will leave you in the wilderness, you and all the fish of your rivers. You shall fall in the open fields. You shall not be picked up or gathered. I will give you as food to the beasts of the field and to the birds of the heavens. So as I pick you up out of the rivers, you and all your fish, I'm going to cast you down on the land and the wilderness, just like you just read, and you're going to be food for the beasts. So yeah, it all does go together. So, and then we've got the beast from the earth, or the beast from the land, and that's that behemoth again.
Yeah.
You know, and the beast from the earth is obviously the false prophet who causes all the people to worship the beast, right?
Yeah.
And it said, I saw another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had two horns like a lamb and spoke like a dragon. So he doesn't say it looks like a lamb. He just says it has two horns like a lamb.
Right.
So we don't know what this thing looks like. We know it has two horns, and it's a beast coming up, and it speaks like a dragon, and it's very authoritative, and it causes the earth and all that are in it to worship the beast. It, you know, this thing, well, this beast, or this man who has this manifestation of this behemoth beast. He deceives those who dwell on the earth by those signs which are granted for him to do. Now he was granted power to give breath to the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause as many as would not worship the image of the beast to be killed. He causes all, both great and small, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hand or on their forehead. So this thing has the power to give breath. That's a ripoff of the Holy Spirit, the breath of God, right? And then when he causes everybody to take this mark, that's the cutting off. That's the blasphemy of the Holy Spirit. Yeah. You're unsavable now. The minute you take this mark, the minute you say yes to this,
you're done.
Yeah, that is the sin unto death. That's the only sin that we know of in the Bible that you cannot be forgiven of, is blaspheming the Holy Spirit, or saying the Holy Spirit doesn't exist. I choose evil. Yep. I choose Satan, the serpent, the devil, the dragon. That's who I choose.
Man.
Wow. Yeah, you're unsavable. And so that even speaks of this behemoth spirit.
Yeah, it does.
It's crazy. So, you know, it's funny how we tend to think of things as being very compartmentalized. Oh, that was in Job. That's fine. Oh, and that's here and that's there. But once we start to really look at it, there is quite a story being told, and it all does make sense. It all weaves together, all of time.
Yeah,
it does. It really, really does. And we were talking about the mark today. You know, what is the mark?
Yeah, that was a fun conversation. Leilani came into the conversation at the end of the day, and she was like, "Oh my God, there's 240 messages I have to read." And I go, "Yeah, I got a little spicy." was fun. That was a good conversation. I don't think we have a resolution to it, but the end of it is we, well, I think it's the most interesting thing that we pointed out was in Revelation 13:16, where it says he causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hand or on their foreheads. If you take that literally to where he literally does cause all, does that mean we're not here for that to take place? Because if we're here, then it's not all. So does that mean that this happens after the rapture?
Yeah. I mean, that was my thought. Hey, there's got to be a rapture. There's got to be a rapture for this mark.
Yeah. I mean, I think
because otherwise every one of it is damned to hell.
Yeah, is it 14? I think it's Revelation 14:9. You have the angel. Then a third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, if anyone worships the beast and his image and receives his mark on their forehead or on his hand, he himself shall also drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out in full strength. So this doesn't, I mean, this could take place before the he causes all. So this could be the pre-warning. This could literally be us. I mean, this could be us warning people, don't take the mark. But the third angel,
The future of money is instantly sending money to relevant friends with zero trend.
I like to think that that's something supernatural that's obvious for people. Just like your last chance, don't take whatever this mark is that's coming.
Mm-hmm. Well, when it says an angel, it means an angel. So obviously there's an angel.
So angel is such a weird word in the Bible because
that's interesting. Yeah.
97% of the time, it doesn't refer to an actual being; it refers to a messenger. I know I watched a video on somebody who did the statistics on it. It's only 3% of the time does it actually refer to a being doing something. I don't know which one this is.
Yeah. Well, but Revelation is filled with angelic beings.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
So we can probably just assume that this is one of these angelic beings that's flying around the world doing what we can't do. There's places on this earth we can't get to rescue people. I can't get to Iran, so Jesus is going himself. He's showing up people's dreams. Jesus go is what I've got to say. But yeah, so what I think is really interesting about what this angel is saying is they will drink the wrath. And we know that we are not appointed to wrath.
That's right.
And so if all does mean all who are on the earth, watching these signs, watching these wonders, this false prophet and this antichrist beast, these two beasts, if all means all, they all take the mark. That means that we believers would not be here.
If I had to guess, or if you had to guess, if I had to guess, I'd say this warning probably takes place during that 1,260 days, which would probably line up with he causes all, because I could imagine that there would be, so you'd have a period of time of warning to where you have people who don't have the mark of the beast, and you have those who are warning, and you also have this angel, whatever it is, warning, if anyone worships the beast and his image and receives his mark, that there's going to come a point in time where, because he causes all to receive, that those who aren't going to receive it are removed. So it would make sense that this could happen during the 1,260 days. Then when the two witnesses died, perhaps that's the rapture of the church, and then everybody left from that point forward. He causes all to receive the mark.
Well, and what chapter was that in? Did you say chapter 14?
Yeah, we're in 14 right now, 14:9.
Yeah, because a lot of times we tend to think, everything's in order.
Mm-hmm.
And it could be in order, but here's the deal. One thing that I've noticed is that sometimes the Bible tells you the broad stroke first,
mm-hmm.
and then it zooms in. So we've got the Adam and Eve, man and woman being created in Genesis 1, but then it goes to the zoom in, and it tells the story from this zoomed in.
The earth brought forth the plants. Yeah.
They put a lot more of them purple lights in still, Diane, are they?
So from my understanding, that's a literary mechanism called summary and expansion. Have you heard of that before?
Yes, it's exactly what it is. And so for me, there's a good possibility that that's exactly what this angel is, because he introduces this mark and then he zooms in on the warning from the angel. That's how I take that. I can be wrong, but
so what this tells me is that we'll probably know what the mark of the beast is at some point. Like before the rapture, I would assume that we'll know what the mark of the beast is, because we'll be warning, the angel will be warning not to take it. But there will come a point in time to where those who aren't going to take it will be removed.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what it seems like, because all means all. And, you know, I remember watching movies, and I know that people have had dreams and visions and things like that. Was it David Wilkerson's vision and all that? Of having to make a choice, and those who choose.
I don't like David Wilkerson anymore. I heard him say, "How dare you basically accuse Billy Graham, and how dare you accuse Oral Roberts?" Well, Oral Roberts, that's Kenneth Copeland's mentor. So I got him right off David Wilkerson now.
Oh, I'm not going to take this mark, are taken straight to the guillotine.
Yeah.
Now, it doesn't really say that in that area. Now, where is they lose their heads in Revelation?
In 20. I think that's Revelation 20.
So that's another.
So that's 24. And I saw thrones, and they sat on them, and judgment was committed to them. Then I saw the souls of those who had been beheaded for their witness to Jesus and for the word of God, who had not worshipped the beast or his image, and had not received his mark on their foreheads or in their hands. And they lived and reigned with Christ for 1,000 years. But the rest of the dead did not live again.
And not just that, they will strike our head and we will strike their heel. So that's also a reference to beheading.
Until the 1,000 years were finished. This is the first resurrection. Blessed and holy is he who has part in the first resurrection. Over such the second death has no power. But they shall be priests of God and of Christ, and shall reign with him 1,000 years.
So what does that tell you about those who don't take the mark? Do they live alongside these people who do take the mark, these all, or are they moved? What is it?
Yeah, so I mean, does that mean that, so say there is not a rapture and we're all here and we're all going to be faced with the decision, take the mark or die, take the mark or lose your head?
Yeah.
I don't know about you. I'm taking my head. Got it off.
Yeah. So usually the guillotines are already being dispersed throughout the states.
See, that's creepy. I mean, like, we've actually seen stories, we've seen evidence, people have seen these things on trucks. I believe there's laws on the books already for the use of them. I mean, like, there's receipts for this. That's freaky, guys.
Yeah. Yep. Not only that, but you know, the Muslim faith, that's how they like to kill the infidel, is through beheading.
Yeah.
And if you line up 10, 20, 30 people at a time, that's pretty easy.
Yeah.
And efficient.
That's almost what I wonder if that's not what happens. So it feels like we're waiting for the election. I don't think this administration is going to survive. I think where the administration is going to change, Trump is probably going to win, and then it would not surprise me if we don't find out who Charles really is, and also all those people who are in our country right now, if that's not when they're activated and start to come against the woman who flees to the wilderness.
Yeah, and we know that that's Israel. The woman who flees to the wilderness is Israel. The remnant of faithful people in Israel are going to be protected in Petra.
Yeah.
And surprisingly, right here in DFW, Irvin Baxter, he has endtime.com. Actually, he died during COVID. His son-in-law is Dave Robbins is running the ministry. He was told, probably 15, 20 years ago, to stock Petra with food for so many people for 3.5 years.
Oh.
So Petra is stocked with food. And that is in Jordan, I believe.
Interesting.
And Jordan has really not made any moves against Israel. Really hasn't. It's actually, from what I understand, Jordan is a Palestinian state with the rulership of a whole nother family. And so they, filled with what we would call Palestinians, the Palestinians that are in Israel are not wanted by them because they're troublemakers. They're drains on society. They don't want them, although their brothers, their sisters, their kinsmen are all in Jordan.
Yeah.
So
I'm pretty sure the state of Georgia bought 35,000 guillotines in 2014. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's right.
yeah, it's a whole total rat's nest over there. But yeah, so that's where Petra's at, is in Jordan, and that's where they're going to flee to. They're going to flee to Jordan, and Irvin Baxter put food there for 3.5 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So who are the two witnesses? Because we know that they play a pivotal role. I personally feel that when the 1,260 days starts, we'll know. We'll know two things. We'll know who the two witnesses are, and we'll know what the mark of the beast is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think so too. I do. So, and yeah, you're right. We have been so taught over the years that it's Elijah and Enoch, or Elijah and Moses, or and yes, the miracles that they do, the powers that they have, absolutely match Moses and Elijah, and it makes sense, because if the Jews are going to listen to anybody, they'll listen to Elijah and Moses.
Yeah.
And what are we doing this for? The Jews. We're doing this for the salvation of the Jews, my Lord. So that does make sense, but it doesn't say that. It doesn't say that they're these two guys. So they really could be someone that we don't expect.
Yeah, could be two people alive right now who just get the spirit of Elijah and Moses, or Enoch and Elijah, or who knows?
Did you know that most garage doors don't lock when they shut? So you could protect your garage with one of these. Or you could just get a B&D garage door, because when a B&D door is shut, it can be locked shut. Is your garage as safe as can B&D?
Bodie just used BPay to make his car insurance payments in the security of his online banking. BPay.
Who knows? Probably Elijah and Moses. If I were to guess, based on what they do, I would say if it's not the physical people, that it would be the spirit. In the same way that John the Baptist was Elijah, had the spirit of Elijah.
Yeah. Yep, and he didn't even know it. He didn't know that he was Elijah. He didn't know that. So, but yeah, it could very well be. And we were actually even talking about the possibility of people like, well, you were talking about Elon Musk, Donald Trump. We talked about Putin even today.
Putin, Netanyahu. I'm just thinking of people who are in power, who in the event of a massive shift would still have the same pull to be able to prophesy for 1,260 days. And I think the word prophecy throws people off, because prophecy could be the spirit of truth. It could literally just be speaking the truth. I know I go here towards like, oh, all the mysteries of the universe are going to be revealed. It may not be that. It may literally just be, don't take the mark of the beast, otherwise you're going to die. It's just, I imagine that these two individuals will be speaking the truth and fighting for the spirit of truth, and they'll probably they're not going to go against Israel, which it's interesting because that eliminates Putin, because right now he hasn't touched the apple of God's eye, but if he is Gog of Magog, he's going to. God's going to put a hook in his nose and pull him too. I know that the Ezekiel Gog and Magog war could be after the 1,000-year reign, but with what's going on with Persia right now, it makes me kind of wonder if maybe there's not a translation issue, or we're misunderstanding something, just considering what's going on in that sphere of things right now. But my
Yeah.
point being is, like Musk and Trump, man, and Netanyahu, they're men in positions of power who it would be hard to shut them down for 3.5 years. God has obviously blessed them, and all power comes from God. That's what we need to realize. This isn't something that the devil gives people. God gives power and authority. People have it because God allowed it.
Yeah. So Steve Cicolante, speaking of Gog and Magog, and if it's Russia and Putin.
Oh, yeah, she's mentioning our mate Steve Cicolante.
Steve Cicolante makes a really great case that it is not. And he actually says, a lot of people will draw this line up to Moscow and say, well, see, that's Magog, Magog, Moscow, Magog, Moscow. But really, if you look north of Jerusalem, you get to this specific area of Turkey.
I could see that. Because the area in Turkey is highly Islamic.
Yep. And it's the capital city. Is it Riyadh? Am I in the right country? Where's Riyadh? No, that's someplace else. So anyway, it's like the capital city of Turkey. So and then when he continues, he makes a really great case for their leader as well as so it was really interesting, and
I think,
so it's been told it has to be Russia, and this is why. And just because a word sounds kind of like another word or starts with the same letter is not a good enough reason to say that that's it.
No, I think Armageddon News also was making that similar argument because they were considering all the Muslim countries, and that's where Turkey came up. Because I was surprised to find that basically all the locations where the churches started, so all the churches mentioned in the book of Revelation, they're all Muslim now. It's a heavy Muslim area. Who knew?
Yeah, and they were all in Turkey and Greece, or Turkey, now Greece or something. I can't remember. But yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah. Well,
but I would throw out maybe some media people like Tucker Carlson. I know that you brought him up.
Yeah, I can see Tucker. He wields a lot of power. Yeah. Yeah. And he speaks truth.
And as a journalist, he is a witness. That's his job, to witness what is happening and tell you about it. Well, politicians, that's not their job. But I mean, heck, if anybody was a bit of a politician, it would have had to have been Moses. Moses was kind of a politician.
Yeah, he was raised in the king. He was raised in the palace.
That's right. So he was the politician, and then you had Elijah, who's kind of he's out there prophesying. He's the billboard. He's the Tucker Carlson of his day.
Out in the wilderness, out in the brushes.
Yeah, telling the truth. So that's kind of an interesting thought too.
I think Jordan Peterson would be another good one, a good candidate. Yeah,
I like Jordan.
Yeah, I just think the two things that I'm considering right now are people in power and people who are speaking the truth in the face of opposition, because that's my expectation of what the two witnesses are going to do. And I'm constantly reminded of they're tormenting the whole world. So you've got the whole world that believes one way, and these guys are speaking something against it. So they're going to be tormenting those who are against them.
Well, you know what? They don't even have to have power. They don't, because
that word power, where it says, and I will give power to my two witnesses, isn't in the original text. And it just says, I will give my two witnesses. And then it lists things that seem like power. So it depends on how you interpret that. So you could interpret it to be figurative, like, breathing fire from your mouth could be speaking truth, because we know that the fire is often associated with the scripture, or it could literally be fire. But one of the reasons why I think of people in positions of power, because they have Secret Service. When with these guys that are like super wealthy.
By the Lord, you don't need it.
True.
It's their protection. They don't need it. It could be Joe Schmo, if that's who God raises up. Yeah. And you were talking about prophecy and how people get confused with prophecy, because we all think that prophecy is foretelling the future.
Right.
And that's never what it was. That's never what it was. Prophecy is speaking God's word and warning them and saying, look, you're off base, repent, or this is going to happen. Well, they started to call it prophecy because they never repented, and so they always got the judgment. And then they started to think, well, these prophets are just foretelling the future. That's not what it was. And it says here in 1 Corinthians 14, but he who prophesies speaks edification and exhortation and comfort to men. So those are the kind of things that they're going to be speaking edification, exhortation, and comfort to us. And they're going to be calling out the evil ones. They're going to be calling them out.
That's right.
Oh, I can't wait.
There is an element of prophecy foretelling the future, but when you look at the men who did that, it was like, so I think of Daniel. He says that it was from searching the scripture and understanding the stars. It's just like when you trust God, believe God, and you have the right information, you can see what he's going to do. You can say, look, if you don't change, this is what's going to happen. I mean, we can do that today. If you don't repent, if you don't change, if you take that mark, you're going to burn in hell. You're going to suffer eternal damnation. I'm telling you the future. But that's what's written in the scripture. It's not coming from me.
Yeah, most definitely. And there's a lot of prophetic stuff in the scriptures. I mean, just look at Psalms 22.
That's right.
David sees the cross. Mm-hmm. He says things that actually happen on the cross to a T, the same words as Jesus, the same things that happened to him. You know, that they gave him gall to drink, and that all of his bones were sticking out. I mean, all those things that are mentioned of Jesus on the cross, that they gambled for his garments, things like that. So there's prophetic things, and then there's prophecy, and that's prophetic stuff. He's writing this poem, and he's either, I believe he saw it. I believe that God showed it to him.
Yeah.
Do I know that for certain? No, it's just what I believe.
I mean, I believe that. So that's also where you would know about the future is God would show you or tell you. And the same goes for the past too, because God communicated to Moses about what happened in the Garden of Eden.
Yeah. When he passed by him, and put him in that cleft of the rock, he saw everything. Again, he saw his backsides. He saw the past, and he could write it all down. You know, when you talk about God showing you the future, Abraham, when he takes, is it Abraham and Isaac? Yeah, Abraham and Isaac. When he takes Isaac up on the hill to sacrifice him, and he looks, and he looks afar off. It says he looks afar off, and there is a ram. Okay, so Pastor Troy believes when he looked afar off, he saw the cross. He actually saw through space and time, saw the cross, saw God's Son as the sacrifice, the ram, not a lamb, an adult man, a ram that was the actual sacrifice. So he believes that Abraham saw through space and time to the cross and knew your son is the sacrifice, not mine.
Interesting.
So I think that's a really cool thought. I would love to think that's true. I don't know if it's true or not, but it would be really cool. And it would be just like our God to say, hey, Abraham, check this out. Guess what I'm going to do? I'm not going to make you do this, but I'm going to show you what I'm going to do.
Well, we know God has that capability because Moses, via the book of Genesis, in Genesis 3, tells us that the seed of the woman is going to bruise the head of the serpent. In the
face of adversity.
Okay, Bas, I'm going to finish off with that Nibiru thing. Goes for 18 minutes, and that'll take me right out.
I found something pretty mind-blowing, my friends. This is Tony. Hope you're all doing well. I'm going to get into something I discovered. Actually, it was about a month ago, but this is pretty amazing. So we had multiple occurrences of two different anomalies happening near or around eclipses, solar and lunar eclipses. Now, I noticed this pattern when I was just investigating. something that was sent to me by a subscriber. We were talking, and this is actually from Newsweek magazine here. And this might look familiar because I talked about this about a month ago, but I'm going to get into more detail now and talk about how this actually relates to these eclipses and get into more detail and show you more footage and more evidence, all that kind of stuff. At any rate, so you had this thing happen back on April 10th.
Okay, fine.
This is from Newsweek. Mystery as underwater anomaly larger than Texas spotted off African coast. Believe it or not, this happened more than once. No one seems to know about this, though.
Okay, sorry.
All right. I mean, people know about this specific instance, but they don't know about the other previous ones. So what's curious is this happened on 4/10. That was about 2 days after the eclipse. And I actually have seen now a theory as to what caused it. Now, what's this app is saying, this is an app that basically tells you, let's just read a little bit. It tells you.
I remember this.
About waves and things like that. A giant cluster of waves over 80 foot high, spanning 2,000 miles, an area larger than Texas, appeared to move through the ocean off the coast of Africa on April 10th in a journey that lasted about 24 hours. It's about 36 hours, actually. Some online commentators say the formation could only have been created by something moving under the surface of the sea, making it an unidentified, submersible object. Yeah, the size of Texas. Well, actually, there is another way this could have happened, and I'm going to get into that in this video. A graphic of the anomaly has been shared widely online, sparked by numerous jokes and theories. Some suggest the anomaly shows the path of a giant underwater sea creature 2,000 miles across. Okay, that's pretty big. Yeah, I don't think so. The wave anomaly was picked up by Ventuski, a meteorological app run by a Czech company Inmeteo, which allows users to observe weather patterns, winds, and waves using real-time data collated from respected international sources, including the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, a U.S. GOV agency. On its website, the company wrote, "We have created an entirely new system of displaying waves through the use."
That's pretty big earthquakes for 2 earthquakes, vast.
Of animated arcs or visualization clearly differentiates the direction of movement and the height of both winds, waves, and swells. So as you can see, it's very large, whatever it was. Now, what's curious is I found another instance of this that happened 2 years ago. And they show actually a picture of what it looked like from a satellite. And it shows this weird swirl look. And it's in this area. Now, this area is known for having sort of like micro swells and things like this. But what this channel is actually claiming is happening scientifically is they're saying that this specific area of the Atlantic is nearest to an internal Van Allen radiation belt, comes closest to the Earth's surface. So
we've made this unskippable because you can't skip on the hard work it takes to raise Australia's favourite free-range chicken. Dedication you can taste. From Lilydale.
Mac is the secret behind holiday seekers, who tweak spreadsheets with their annual leave and travel beyond reach almost every weekend.
they're saying that the Van Allen radiation belt comes closest to the Earth at this point, near South Africa. Now, I don't know how that would tie into this.
The vast, how did it dissipate? It didn't hit land, so how did it dissipate?
That is even the case, but I mean, theoretically, that could make some sense of this because, of course, this happened during solar eclipses or around the time of solar eclipses. Perhaps the electromagnetic interference by the solar eclipse somehow affects the Van Allen belt or something. I don't know. It could cause this. That's one theoretical way you could look at it. Of course, others are saying just kind of silly stuff like it was an unidentified, object or some massive mythological sea creature 2,000 miles across? I don't think so. It's kind of big. It's a little bit too big, you know what I mean? Or, some massive ship underwater or something like that. But it is interesting trying to figure out what it is. But what's really interesting, though, also, again, it was 36 hours long. And again, it was near the time of a solar eclipse. And when you look back, 2 years back, they had a eclipse shadow path that went this way. And that swell, or whatever it was right here during that time 2 years ago. Could it be related to this eclipse? Of course, the eclipse recently was this way, and it was there again. Does this affect the Van Allen belt? Could it be something else? I don't know what it is, but it is interesting how it's related to the solar eclipse, and that was not the only thing that happened. And actually, there was something that happened on the solar eclipse near the sun. This might look familiar. Remember seeing this before? This is back in 2012. It also happened in 2022. Some mysterious object, very giant, for some reason connected, a spherical object connected to the sun. Looks like it's sucking energy off.
I saw that.
Actually. But this has actually been seen many times.
It was huge, much bigger than Earth, and it was sucking energy from the sun. It looked like Star Wars Death Star.
10 years apart to within almost a month. About 10 years and a month apart. Is it 10 years and a month? I think it's 10 years and a month apart. You had the exact same thing happen twice in the same place. But we just had it also happen again on the other side of the sun during the day of the solar eclipse. All right, so you saw how big that spherical object is that, of course, is near, the sun. The question is, how big is that? And to get an idea, let me play a little bit of a clip from Neil deGrasse Tyson talking about the size of the sun here. Let's play this really quick.
If you hollowed out the sun, and then I sort of played a little basketball and started tossing Earths into the sun, do you know how many Earths would fit in the sun?
Okay, so basically what he guesses, this guy here guesses that it's 100,000 Earths can fit in the volume of the sun. Now, I thought that actually sounded high. I was like, no way, it's not that high, is it? Apparently, that's low. It's actually way more. Let's see if I can find the section to where how many Earths actually fit inside the sun itself. Let me play this just so you can hear it for yourself. Let's see here. Where's that? Here it is. Okay. Let's see if we can get it to play. All right, here we go. Let me play this.
The actual number is about 1 million.
What? 1 million. So 1 million Earths can fit inside the sun, according to scientists, right? Now, again, assuming this is all the case, you saw how big that object is near the sun. It's clearly probably bigger than Earth, obviously, based on that. Just to know.
So we've all been researching the same stuff, haven't we? All of us.
1 million Earths will fit in the sun. I'm thinking it's probably even bigger than Jupiter, even. Whatever it is, it's extremely large. So I just wanted to put that out there so you can get a perspective. If this thing is what it seems to be, it's very, very large. As you can see right here, it's something tethered to the sun. So this is, actually, this has been seen many, many times. And it is curious. They do seem to happen around the time of solar and lunar eclipses. I'm not saying that's always the case because it isn't, but they seem to be sort of in that range. So it seems a little strange to me. I just showed you one. Let's see here. I just showed you this one, which is literally on April 8th. This is on April 8th this year. Now, the other ones weren't on the dates of eclipses, I don't think, but they were close. Let's see. The other one was in March 2012, and one was in April 2022. let's see here. Yeah, April 2022. As you can see here, there was a partial one. And it's actually in that region again. No, it's not the same region. That region is over here. It's a different region, actually. April 30th. So that's similar time frame. It's not exact, though, because I don't think it was April 30th. I think it was like April 20th or something like that that they saw it. So it's in the range, but not quite. Pretty close. So you get kind of the idea. It's so strange how they seem to be in the same ballpark. Both anomalies seem to be around the time of lunar and solar eclipses. It's a little strange. It's a little strange. So, at any rate, so you got that. You have actually a lot more of these, believe it or not. This one is from 2020, August 2020.
Yeah, right.
You can see something near the sun. What is that? Now, let me look at August. No, I don't see any in August. There's one in July, but there's none in August. So that's kind of weird. So you got that one in August of 2020, but there was no solar or lunar eclipse during that time. That's when the picture was taken, allegedly. That's what they said. And actually, I'm going to get into much more as we get into this video. First, I'm going to mention food supply, 25-year shelf life. Link is in the description. 3 months worth for $5.97. They also got a 1-week deal for $49. They also have a number of other things available. Go check the link in the description, folks. Also, this book here, The Lost Ways, How Your Great-Grandfather Knew Without Electricity at a bit of solar. Do things around the house like they didn't know what to do. They have tons of pieces illustrated. You definitely want to get that before something happens, folks. You can't get it after the fact. It's going to be something that you buy beforehand. Get the printed version. It's like $37 for shipping. How to make a can stacker, how to build a fire, how to how to make pemmican, lots of things illustrated, and lots of great comments about it. Check the link in the description, folks.
Yep.
And of course, my website, GR Videos, go check that out as well. $4.95 a month. First month is free. Over 1,000 of my videos over there, folks. All of those videos I have videos where I put a lot of music and the time and effort into them, even spent a week on some of them to build them. Link is in the description for that as well. So I think we're in a time frame, folks, where clearly something's being said to us. I think God is trying to tell us something, folks. That's what I think, honestly. So definitely we're seeing things happen around us that are sort of unprecedented, folks.
Yeah.
Things in the stars, in the sky, and also on Earth, in the oceans. Things that are unexplained. And people, of course, are coming up with funny theories and such, but I was trying to be a little bit more serious about it. It could have something to do with the Van Allen belt. I don't know. That was what this one guy was proposing here, because it's happened numerous times in that area. That area apparently is the closest where the Van Allen belt gets to the Earth. So perhaps there is something to be said about that. I don't know. But this thing, what is this? That is what we need to know. Of course, a lot of people have speculated about this over the years. And we're seeing, actually, let me show you a number of things in this realm. There's a lot. So we have, of course, this one here. I just showed you this one a minute ago. Some are saying it's a planet behind the sun. Right? What is that? Could it be that? We have here a better, more detailed picture where they heightened it. This one is actually 2012. I think this one's the 2022. Here's another one. I believe this is from a different time frame than either of those two. And then you got this one here. What is that? Right? I mean, this is May 11th, 2021. What happened on May 11th, 2021? Let's go look at that. Oh my goodness. Here we go again. Time of a lunar eclipse is very close to it. May 25th. Again, this one was before the lunar eclipse. And actually, the one that just happened on April 8th was actually, it started before the eclipse. So it seems like every time right before an eclipse, whether it's a few days or 15 days, we see one of these objects show up. Often. Very, very strange. Why does it show up anywhere from 5 to 15 days before an eclipse? Is there something that we're missing here, folks?
No.
What could this be? Clearly it's something. It's not nothing. You can't just ignore it. Just like, oh, there's blinders. Just ignore it. Ignore the thing, the big, huge thing near the sun. I mean, this is what they do. If they don't have it.
And Vast, there's a lot of water stored on top of the ice shelves. And when the shelf falls, all that water, like lakes deep water, are sitting on the top of Antarctica.
Explanation for it. It doesn't meet scientific rationale. Really, what would you call that? It clearly is there. It's there. You can't deny its existence. It's there, right? So what is it? That's the question. And so there's actually about 5 or 6 of these I just showed you. This one's actually much larger. This one's actually much larger. Look how big that one is. So some of these look larger than others as well. Are there planetary bodies that can move? There was a movie I watched. What was that movie called? It was about the moon being an artificial object. Is that moon movie? I'm trying to remember what it was called. No. Movie about moon. Okay, there we go. No. Moonfall. Was it Moonfall? I think it might have been Moonfall. Was it this movie? Yeah. So they go to the moon and they find out it's an actual artificial object. They get inside it, and it's actually a it's like the Death Star. It's a colossal artificial object that can move on its own.
Yep.
Right? That's what the movie was about. I'm not postulating this. This is a movie. Moonfall. We even had Star Wars with the Death Star, right? Why is it we see something getting close to the sun like this? Could it be siphoning energy off the sun?
That's what it looks like.
What is going on here, man? Right? Could this be like the movie Moonfall, where you have literal planets that can move on their own? So, I don't know. That's just sort of a weird thought. I'm not saying that's what it is. Who knows? I don't know what it is. But it is strange how you have something that appears to be siphoning energy off the sun that continually, during around the time just before the solar eclipse.
Okay, he's over in a minute, guys, so I'll hang up as soon as the red line drops.
Seems to show up. Yeah, I don't know what to say. Last time I did this video, it was like the same thing. I'm like, what is this thing? And of course, there's lots of different theories. Clearly, it seems to be something that moves on its own. An organism? No, I don't think so. I don't think it'll be getting that close to the sun either. That's very close.
Okay, guys.
It's pretty hot. And then, of course, what is this anomaly? What's going on in